What is going on, guys? How's everyone going? Let's do a bit of an audio check just to be safe. Let me know if the audio is okay in the comment down below or on the side or wherever it is. Let me know if the audio is okay. How's everyone going? Hello, Dot. How you going? And hello, Coalition. And we had such a massive turnout in the last live stream. I was super excited to see that. We had 59 people all in the chat. It was the RG552 launch live stream. So just when it was launching, I decided to do a live stream. And that was a little bit later on in the day, my time. So that was about 6 p.m. my time, which probably isn't ideal for the US audience, because I believe when the RG552 was actually on sale, it was like 2 a.m. for people in the Pacific. But I think a lot of people in Europe, I think, were ordering their console or their handheld. And there were a lot of people that came in and joined in the live stream and made it really fun. And so I don't know how the turnout is going to be at this time. Usually I get like about 10, 15, 20 people. But the point of these shows is really for me to bring out a lot of the news that I don't often make as a video, because making each video takes time, and it's easier to just do a bunch of these news stories. And then you can also treat this as like a podcast of sorts if you wanted to as well. And also, I get to interact with you guys in the comments and chat. And if you guys have questions and things, we can talk about that too. So that's why I like doing these live streams. And you know, when you get a good crowd, like 20 people or so, that's kind of enough anyways to get some questions and things going. Okay, so... So Dot was saying, decided to buy the RG351P as my first retro handheld last week. And that's a great choice, because that's my favorite of those retro handhelds. It's got such a nice build quality, and it's such a pleasure to play every time. I put ArcOS on it. I didn't bother with the original operating system that they had, the original Ambinic firmware. Put ArcOS on it, and it runs like a champ. So very happy with that. I actually have 3 of them. I have RG351P in the black and white, and also the purple. And then I've also got the RG351M. And that was sort of by accident, because I actually meant to get 2. I bought the RG351M as a second one, and I found it a bit heavy, so I ended up getting a third one. So that's why I got 3. But yeah, I really like it, and I hope you enjoy yours as well. Got it for $85 with full accessories and case. That's great. Yeah, that's about what I got it for, about $85, $90 with the full accessories. And you really kind of need that anyway, because you're going to be after that dongle with the Wi-Fi. And also if it comes with a case, that's also great as well. But yeah, that Wi-Fi is really important, because then you can do over-the-air updates, and otherwise you have to do it with the cable, and it's kind of annoying going back to your computer and doing that every single time. So over-the-air updates is the best. Hey Christopher Scott, how you going? Okay, good to hear that it sounds good. So I think you're talking about the audio there. All right, so without any further delay, let's talk about what we're going to talk about in this podcast, this live stream here. And we've got such a big show. I don't know if we can keep it down to 2 hours, but we're going to try. We're going to try and streamline things. I'm going to try and not ramble as much. But we'll see how we go. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we'll have to try and get through it as quick as we can. So I just heard a bit of a bell. It might be to do an update on Windows. They always come at the most inappropriate time, honestly. Okay, so I put that off to the side. But what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about some Halo Infinite news. This is to do with the campaign. There's some news going on there, and there's some news about the multiplayer as well. They're going to have a Slayer, which is their deathmatch mode in their multiplayer. And then also some just Halo Infinite news about how they were going to design it a bit like Zelda, which I thought was really interesting. So we'll bring that up. And also I'll talk a little bit about my impressions of Halo Infinite, because I've been playing that during the week and it's been a hell of a lot of fun. Probably have a review up, given that I'm not doing any RG552 stuff yet. So I'll do a review of that. And also I do think it is a little bit weird that I'm doing a lot of different things. But it is a little bit of a downtime in terms of like looking at handhelds and things like that. So that's why I thought maybe while I'm not doing anything super important and I'm playing Halo Infinite anyway, I'll do a video on Halo Infinite. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about, AMD has some, well, they're going to have their CES show, and they're going to bring out some new Ryzen and Radeon products. So we're going to speculate on what they're going to bring out. The next thing is we're going to talk about the Analogue Pocket. Now, the Analogue Pocket has some pre-orders open, and we'll have a look at when exactly. I'm not 100% sure. I did read through the article, but I don't remember if it was today or it was yesterday. Just have a look at the article again. And just to make sure, and there are also some Analogue reviews, Analogue Pocket reviews up as well, so we'll have a look at that as well. Neo has also teased their next handheld. It looks like a handheld anyway, so we'll have a look at that. We're going to talk about the PS4 and PS5 being jailbroken, and the best way to keep up with that, I'll show you who to follow in terms of how to best keep up with the news for that. And also, we're going to talk about probably the biggest news of the week, but it happened about 5 days ago, so it's a little bit late. But we're going to talk about The Matrix Awakens. We'll play through the trailer, and then I will just stop at key points and then just talk about my thoughts on that. And it was pretty spectacular, wasn't it? But it will be fun to watch it again. And then finally, we'll finish up with ranking my favorite handhelds that I have. And I think that's kind of good because I've got the RG552 coming, I've got the Odin coming, and also I've just bought a GameCert X2 and a Android phone. So there's a lot of other devices coming. So it's really interesting to just kind of rank all of the handhelds that I've gotten in the past so that you guys know where I'm coming from, you know, when I go and review these new devices. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Big show today, and we'll try and get through as fast as we can. Okay, you're going to show off any gameplay today. Well, all of that gameplay is on the Jim RPG 2 channel, and it's not something that I really kind of want to advertise because it's like the entire... I haven't done any editing to my Halo Infinite videos. I've just pressed the record button and just recorded it, and most of the time I need to record the entire game just so that I have that material or footage for the final video, which is kind of annoying because I'm up to mission 10 right now, and I've used about 250 gigabytes of my hard drive just for recording about 10 hours of footage. So yeah, it's a lot of extra space that I have to use, and I actually don't know what I'm going to do with all of that. Initially I thought I would just upload it all onto YouTube and then I could delete all of that off, but having that footage is also nice to have on hand. I just can't imagine what it'd be like to be a game reviewer and have so much recorded footage, because it just drives me bonkers. And this is like 1080p 60 FPS as well, so imagine recording this at 4K. You'd almost need an entire hard drive to do every single game review. Where are we? Okay, best device of the Rockchip 3326 devices, the RG351V. That's my hot take. Yeah, it really depends on like what form factor you like. So I can definitely see people who like the Game Boy form factor to really want to really like the RG351V. And if I just had one P, I would probably get the V as well. But because I have three Ps or two Ps and one M, I'm probably, yeah, I'm gonna pass on that V as well. Hello, Job. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the live stream. Calvin Walker, Halo Infinite stomps, in my opinion. It's been a blast playing with old friends, and I've watched a review of that. Cheers. Yeah, exactly. So I played the old Halos, of course, back on the Xbox. Halo 1 and 2. I played Halo 3. I got kind of a little bit bored and then didn't play from there on. And Halo Infinite is kind of getting back into it as well. So I don't really play that many first-person shooters because they make me a little bit motion sick. So every time I have to play a first-person game for the channel, it always makes me motion sick. But for some reason, Halo Infinite, I've been able to play that for many hours before I kind of start to slightly get a little bit unwell. So that's been great from that front. But the game in general, we'll talk a little bit in a second. But yeah, I'm really enjoying Halo Infinite. It's probably my game of the year. Joe Barresto, my favorite is 351p. The V90 is a close second. Well, they're kind of the two that I have right now. The V90 is great, but I've just been picking up the 351p more than the V90. The V90 was just great to have it and just to see what a really cheap device can do. And honestly, that's really amazing how it can be such an amazing console for like $30, $40, and you can play so many games on it. Opinion on Analogue Pocket using cartridges. Do you think they should have went with ROM emulation? Well, there's enough ROM emulation devices out there anyway that they didn't really need to go into that space. This is really something out on its own. We'll get into that a little bit more later when we talk about the Analogue Pocket, but I really like the device. Do you think they should have? No. So no, I think they should have gone with cartridges because there isn't anything else like that in the market. All right, so just before we get into the news, a really quick channel update, and this is mostly to do with RG552. So my device has been shipped, the one that I bought, I think it went on sale on the 6th of December. So the one that I bought, I'm about to get it probably maybe like Monday, Tuesday of next week. So from then on, I will be doing impressions and then and then, you know, as you know, with the PowerKitty X18S, I did videos of each console. And so I thought that was a really good way to kind of differentiate from other sites as well that have been also doing retro handhelds. And I kind of like that because I was also testing the systems a lot and testing a lot of games. So I thought that was a good way to do it. And I know that not a lot of people want to watch like a really long video on it, but they do want the highlights or the best of kind of thing. And for the people who want to watch the entire long videos of it, they can go and watch that on the second channel. So I'll put all of those up there. So the RG552 will pretty much have the same process as the X18S. So if you like that format, yeah, well, we're going to try and do that for the RG552 as well. The thing is that with this type of process, you're not going to get like the final thoughts or the review until 2 or 3 weeks later, which makes sense anyways, because I would need to play it for a couple of weeks before I really want to give final thoughts on it. The other thing is that I am still getting a review unit. They said they were going to ship it to me, and I don't know if they have shipped it yet, but they said they finalized that. And so it could still be a couple of weeks away before I get a review unit. So I'll probably end up giving that review unit away instead of the one that I purchased. So, but that's going to happen a little bit later. That's going to be like, you know, maybe in January sometime. So we'll do that giveaway a little bit later down the track. Okay, so that's about all I really wanted to say. The next 2 or 3 weeks from here on out, we'll probably be focusing in on the RG552. And then I think this is going to be the final live stream for a couple of weeks because the live stream takes a day. And if the RG552 takes 3 weeks, it's going to take 3 days out. So we don't want to do that. We want to spend those 3 days doing testing on the RG552. So then I will come back after the RG552 and do a live stream. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, but let's go and do some news for today. And we'll open up the browser. Let me take a drink first. So we're going to talk about Halo Infinite first. Let me see if I can play this. So I can just talk a little bit about my impressions of the game while this video plays. I won't turn on the sound because that's kind of annoying to have the music and sound on. Is it going to start? Okay. And I think this is some Eurogamer guy playing it, which is fine. Now he's going through all the settings. That's a bit annoying. Okay, let's see if he gets into some gameplay here. So just really quickly, let's just do some really quick impressions of Halo Infinite. It's amazing. If you guys haven't played it yet, I highly recommend it. Just go and get Game Pass for like a couple of months. It might be like $15, and it's totally worth it. If you like the old Halos from the past, like Halo 1, Halo 2, this kind of is that reimagining, or it's what all of the fans who kind of fell out of the series, and they always talked about how Halo was great and what they want to see from the next Halo. This kind of takes all of that and puts that into a game, which is kind of crazy because, you know, I think sometimes gamers have a lot of unrealistic expectations, because if they actually go back to play that original game, it was not what they thought it was. It was not amazing the entire time. It might have been amazing for like a couple of hours here and there, but because it's been 15, 20 years, it's not that amazing anymore. The thing with Halo Infinite is that the entire game really feels incredible, like amazing. It's just how you thought it would be. And it brings back a lot of that Halo feel from the best moments of Halo. And you might have like, you know, a couple of 100 hours logged on multiplayer, playing LAN parties with your friends. Well, it kind of brings a lot of those best moments back from that. And as you can see here, a lot of it, so Halo Infinite, part of it is open world and part of it is level based. And I think that's a really cool approach, because that brings together all of the best bits from old Halo, like big levels, that sort of thing. But then it also brings in these sort of base type of things where it's kind of like from the multiplayer aspect. So this almost feels like, to me, like it's a multiplayer game when you go and go around, running around and trying to kill everybody inside that base. It almost feels like a single player multiplayer version. And I think it blends those two things together really well, to have this open world aspect, the multiplayer aspect inside your single player, and also have those big single player levels as well that we know from Halo. So I think it does a lot of things right, and the gameplay really feels like it's Halo. If you play it on, I'm playing it on normal at the moment, and really I think it should probably be played on heroic, but I'm so rusty, I haven't played for like 15, 20 years. I decided to play on normal anyway. I think normal is a little bit too easy, because you can run and gun a little bit too much, and it shouldn't be that forgiving. Like, there are clearly times when you make a mistake and you're not punished for it. But the game is long enough that I don't mind that much. Like, I can't play through a 30, 40 hour game right now. So I'm happy that it's a little bit more forgiving in that way. I can finish the game. Well, I thought it was going to take 10 hours, but it's looking like it's going to take me 20 hours now. But I'm doing a lot of the side things as well. I'll turn off my phone. So anyway, those are my impressions. I will have a video of this up where I'm a little bit more concise and not rambling as much, but I'm really enjoying it. The levels are awesome. The graphics are awesome. This is, I think this game looks really good. I mean, maybe it's not up there with Forza Horizon 5, but just the art style and everything makes it look really unique. And, you know, I'm really happy with the way it looks. Let's put it that way. And some people say it's not next gen. I don't quite agree. It looks really good when you look at the game. It does a lot more with the performance budget it's allowed, because this game has to also play on Xbox One, don't forget. That I don't mind so much. There are a lot worse performing games like Cyberpunk 2077 that wouldn't run on an Xbox One anyway, and this game looks way better than Cyberpunk 2077. Okay, so let's stop this video. Let's talk about the news of Halo Infinite. And here the first article we have is campaign level select in Halo Infinite is challenging, but 343 Industries is working on it. This is from Eurogamer, and essentially they're saying that there's no mission select or level select yet, so you can't go back and play through the levels once you've completed them. You can't just go back and jump into a particular level that you like, which is really interesting because I never really thought about it like that, that it would be hard to implement something like that into a single player game. But it seems that because now it's open world, that they can't really do that anymore. Because, for example, they want to leave it in a way that everything stays the same, or how I guess like if you've gone into a level and completely destroyed it, they want to leave it how you've destroyed it. And so if you do a mission select, sometimes going back to an area, it's not going to work out that same way. So maybe that's why they're having issues like deciding when to leave something the way it is, or when to just refresh it for that mission select. So I can kind of see why mission select is a little bit more difficult now in an open world game than initially than it seems. So here they've said the opportunity to replay campaign modes in Halo Infinite is coming later, according to 343 Industries Associate Creative Director Paul Crocker. Acknowledging players may be frustrated that there's currently no way they can go back to enjoy and replay story missions, Crocker explained that pivoting to non-linear gameplay makes replaying the campaign incredibly challenging, but level select is being worked on. He also says you cannot replay missions in campaign at this point in time, Crocker told Steve Iver. It's part of what is coming later. The main reason is because being a more open game and a non-linear game, it became incredibly challenging. It's not that it doesn't work, it's just that it's not finished. We made the decision to make a better game, to improve the quality of the game so we could then add the features, just like co-op. And that is disappointing for us as the people who made it, but it was also the better option for us to make a better game and add that later. Okay, so there's just one more quote. Level select is all part of this stuff that's being worked on at the moment, and obviously we haven't announced a date. The reason I'm being a bit cagey is honestly I don't know exactly, but people are working on that even now. It's coming is the only answer we can give. So there it is. It's kind of difficult. It's surprising, but I can understand where they're coming from with that. Okay, let's go to the next piece of Halo news. And I'm not playing Halo Infinite multiplayer because I would just get destroyed, but I'm very happy to play the campaign, and I might even play it in heroic, but just a little bit slower paced. Yeah, so I probably won't play multiplayer. I did play Halo 2 multiplayer for a while, but it got to a point where it was way too difficult, and then I wasn't having any fun because I was getting destroyed all the time. And I don't think 15-20 years of not playing Halo is going to do me any favors either. Okay, so a Slayer playlist is coming to Halo Infinite next week. Expect Slayer, Fiesta, FFA, and Tactical Slayer SWAT. This is awesome because when I played Halo 2, Slayer was pretty much all I played. I think a lot of people are like that. They really want that default deathmatch mode where they can run around and just shoot people. And Team Slayer is great and all, but people also want that extra little bit of freedom they get from just having a free-for-all. Okay, a Slayer playlist is officially locked and loaded for Halo Infinite's update next week. A basic Slayer offering will deploy first, with the team at 343 Industries looking to bolster and expand more variants in the future updates. 4 new playlists, Slayer, Fiesta, FFA, and Tactical Slayer SWAT, will be added via a services update on Tuesday, December 14, wrote 343i's Industries community manager Postums on the Halo subreddit. As I noted last week, The team's original plans for a Slayer playlist included a variety of new variants that weren't going to be ready in time to deploy before the holiday break. To address player feedback for Slayer in the near term, we'll be releasing a basic Slayer offering to start, and we'll look to bolster and expand with more variants in a future update. I think that's just fine. People just want that Slayer in. I'm surprised that they didn't have it to go. I guess they wanted to make sure, that it was ready first. But I think they wanted to emphasize the other games that they had on offer, whatever that was. I'm not sure what they had, but it's probably why they didn't come with Slayer first. And also maybe if they went with Slayer first, everyone would just play Slayer anyway, and they probably wanted people to try out the other modes. Okay, so that's about it for that article, but if you're interested in Slayer, well, it's coming next week, which is pretty exciting news. Okay, here's another Halo Infinite article, and I'm just including this because we're doing a lot of Halo Infinite stuff. But essentially they said it was going to be a vast Zelda-like open world. And I think that would have been a bad idea. But let me read through the article a little bit just to tell you what it's about. Again, this is from Eurogamer. Halo Infinite's single-player campaign was once planned as a vast Zelda-like experience, but this was drastically cut back, which is a good thing, as part of 343 Industries' plan to reduce the game size by almost 2/3 by its final version. I just can't imagine this, like it's already, if you wanted to, this would be a 30-hour game if you wanted to do everything. I just can't imagine this being like a 60, 70-hour game, which would be really way too long in single player, because I think single player Halo, a good size would be about 15 to 20 hours, because that means that people who really enjoy single player can go through single player play for 15 hours, and then they can try out the harder difficulties, and they can also play with their co-op as well. And I think that's more than enough for single player. That is at least 100 hours if you want to do all of that stuff. Then there's of course multiplayer as well if you want more. And that's why I don't think 100 hours of Halo single player is really useful, because that just kind of annoys people who want to finish the game. Okay, so this is a quote from Jason Schreier, and we'll go into Jason Schreier's article in just a second. But the quote was, by the summer of 2019, Halo Infinite was in crisis mode. The studio decided to cut almost 2/3 of the entire planned game, leaving managers to instruct some designers to come to the office and do nothing while the studio figured out the next move. Eventually, the game's open world was cut back from a vast Zelda-like experience into something far smaller. It soon became clear to some on the team that even with the compromises, getting Halo Infinite into decent shape by the following fall would be impossible. Still, the timing of the release didn't seem up for discussion. Microsoft told 343 that it had to be a launch game for the next Xbox, which meant releasing it in November 2020. And then says 343's toolset Faber was difficult to use, that they spent months considering a switch to Unreal. They didn't. The game was delayed multiple times. One early plan was to release multiplayer in 2019 and campaign in 2020. But I think that was a really good move anyways, because what they've done now is they've got these levels that are not open world. So the first mission and the second mission is not open world, and it's a really big, long level like you remember from past Halo games. And then mission 3, 4 open world type of missions. So there you can go to different points on the map. I love how it breaks that open world monotony up, because one thing that I really can't stand in open world games is the traversal aspect that you see in things like Assassin's Creed, and that just really bugs the hell out of me. I don't even like it in something like Forza Horizon 5, where you have a monster supercar where you can just drive around really quickly everywhere. The distance where you're actually traversing and not doing anything is just a complete waste of time. And I'm so glad they kind of broke that up, because when you play the actual levels, like in Mission 1 and Mission 2, you really feel like the distance to the next fight is not that far. And then in those open world segments, it's okay sometimes as a little bit of a break to like go from one base to another. It's fine. But there are some moments where you get later on in the game, say mission 8 and mission 9, for example, where they overdo it a little bit, where it's kind of stupid. And I would almost go to say that some of that game design is bad or a little bit lazy. Not the developers are lazy, the game design is lazy. And what I mean by that is like mission 8, they asked you to go and destroy 3 anti-aircraft cannons that are basically bases on the map, right? So you have to go to one, defeat that, go to the next, defeat that, and then the traversal aspect is a little bit annoying. And then the next mission after, they go and ask you to do the same thing, and they ask you to go to 4 beacons, right? So it's just, what are you doing to me? This type of game design is just a little bit too easy, right? There should be like some other way to create these firefights. But yeah, I think open world, sometimes it can fall back onto that sort of design, and I wish they didn't. So now that I finished that article, Duke Lexus says anything rushed is bad. Well, we're just about to get into that. So this is actually Jason Schreier's article. So Jason Schreier, he wrote, I'll just quote a little bit first from the article and then talk about it. So these were where all the quotes were taken from. So the headline was how Microsoft's Halo Infinite went from disaster to triumph. And Jason sometimes does exaggerate to get his point across. He's a good journalist because he gets a lot of leaks and things, but there is a tendency to exaggerate some stuff. Okay, so where are we here? There was a thing that I wanted to read out. I thought it was the first paragraph. Okay, here we go. Look, the trailer showed an expanded playing field and new weapons, but gamers immediately fixated on the graphics, which were so blocky that cynical fans began to joke that Xbox must have mixed up its Halo and Minecraft franchises. Now, he's talking about the E3 Xbox Game Showcase, where Halo Infinite got publicly derided and got a lot of dislikes. Now, I can't actually show the number of dislikes because YouTube turned that off, but I remember that it got a lot of dislikes when they showed off Halo Infinite, and everybody was complaining about Halo Infinite, saying that it didn't look next gen and that people said it looked like a bad game, which is really interesting because like I recommend that whoever's curious, go and check that video out. This is the official Xbox Game Showcase Halo Infinite video. So this is what they showed off 1 year ago, and this is the video that people complained to Microsoft about, saying Halo didn't look good.
I know I saw clone wars over there. I'm going to dig through them and find one with the working sleep space drive. And when you're done with this war, we'll get away from here. Far away.
Wait here.
Oh, please. Let me see what I can find.
Cannons first. When I get back, we can look. Together.
Okay, big guy.
Okay, so I don't know how the sound was then. I'm sorry if I doubled up there. But as far as I can tell, that looked very close to what we got in the final product. That was the exact scene that we got in the final product. And this is Mission 8, Pelican Down, where the mission plays out pretty much exactly the same as what I just played. And so it kind of blows my mind that people are playing the campaign now and loving it. And it was publicly derided before. So it's so weird, the perception of people or what their expectations are. And sometimes you just got to take the L. Like gamers, well, I think, were wrong about the fact that they said this looked bad. I don't think Halo Infinite looked bad last year. We'll go to some gameplay in just a second, but let's just jump into this part here. And as you can see, some of the UI changed a little bit. We'll turn down the sound a little bit. But you can see that it looks very close. Like obviously it looks better now, but I think that it looks a lot, it looks very similar, and the mission plays very similar. And you're doing kind of the same things that you're doing right now. Maybe there's more enemies now, but a lot of what it looked like as the music plays, you gotta love the Halo theme. But a lot of it, you know, it's surprising to me that people hated on the game so much back then, and yet they love it now. It's almost the same. And that was Craig right there. And sure, maybe they've redone some work on Craig, but you wouldn't be able to tell like when you're actually playing when he's running at you. And so I think that was a very minimal part that they blew out of proportion, this Craig meme thing, because it didn't really matter all that much in the end. Now the final game looks very similar to this, like even all of the vegetation, everything that they got there. Sure, you could say that they improved the lighting a bit, but by and large, you know, it looks pretty similar to what you see there. But we're gonna stop that there. And so I think I've said it already, but it does surprise me that people hated on the game so much back then. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it looked a little bit samey. I was a little bit worried that it looked a little bit samey, at least the level that they've decided to show. But I think they wanted to show the open world level. But actually, I find that it's some of the other levels that look really amazing. And maybe it would have been better if they show the first mission, for example. But then people would have derided it for saying, oh, it's on rails too much. So you can't really win either way. But that's all the Halo Infinite stuff that we're going to talk about. We're going to move on to something else. We probably gone 40 minutes on Halo Infinite, so we'll definitely move on. But let's just do some of these chats first. I will maybe just turn off the sound and then go through the chat. Okay, so where are we? Okay. Gamers gave themselves too much and expectations. I think so. I think that's exactly what it was. And I think, you know, they could have had, well, we don't really know how far they've gone with the game. But when you look at this mission right here, they had this finished last year. And obviously they spent a year polishing the game and it feels really good now. So there's probably a lot of things that we don't know that happened. But really there was kind of nothing to complain about if you saw this. I think it was the advertising and promises given before the trailer that made people disappointed. Yeah, you could very well be right, because like Halo fans are really hard to please because they're kind of living with that expectation from the past that Halo 1 was and Halo 2 were the greatest games of all time, and then every game that came with it, it was always hard to live up to that. The grappling hook is a great addition. Yeah, I'm using it a lot, and I'm finding it really hard because I used it so much that I find it hard to change to the other power-ups that I've got. Like I find it hard to go from grappling hook to the shield back to the grappling hook really quickly, or quickly enough that I know when to do it. And I know a lot of expert Halo players probably would be able to do it, no problems. But I'm still working on my skills, I guess. But yeah, the grappling hook is really great. I'm having a lot of fun, and it adds so much to open world gameplay as well, where you can climb around. Yeah, the grapple hook is awesome. Hook punch all day. Yeah, anytime that I have a difficult section, I'm just going to hook and punch and try to get out of this and try to take down as many people. You know, Halo, and I think a lot of the best games that people really enjoy are games where you can find ways to cheese the game a little bit. In something like Assassin's Creed, like sure, you got stealth elements and things like that, but the best games are where it's kind of difficult and you're looking for ways that kind of break the game a little bit to bring the odds in your favor. So Halo is one of those, Dark Souls, Neo, those type of games are really fun like that. So that's Halo Infinite, and if there's more news, we'll talk about it, and I'll have a review of that up soon. So we're going to move on to something else, something completely different. We're going to talk about some hardware news, but I'm just going to make this one really quick because this hasn't happened yet. So this is AMD, and if you're after getting a new PC, perhaps maybe wait for this show, because this CES show is usually in the first week or second week of January, and they're going to announce some new Ryzen products and also Radeon products. But I think the Ryzen processors is kind of like that half step, so they're going to announce something like Zen 3 Plus, which will have the 3D cache in it. Now, it's been a while since I followed a lot of the PC hardware news stuff, but I did follow it at the start of the year, and they had their big show where they talked about 3D cache, and this is where it's probably going to be finally come into play. And the 3D cache is going to give something like 10% performance improvements. At least that's what AMD is saying. So that's a pretty decent improvement. That doesn't equate to 10% frame rate final performance improvement. It just means that it'll probably get you about 10% in terms of speed or I guess IPC performance improvement. But we'll really have to wait and see from hardware reviews what the final performance improvement is going to be inside games. But recently we had Intel Alder Lake, and that was a nice upgrade on the previous gen. Obviously Rocket Lake wasn't that great, but Alder Lake was a decent upgrade, especially if you've got something earlier. But with AMD, if you're been waiting on something, it might be a good time to just wait and see what these products are going to be like and what products they are going to announce. You know, maybe it's something like a 5900X Plus or something like that, where it's a little bit better, and that way you can get the latest processor. And also be really curious to see what the prices are going to be, because we've had a lot of inflation. So no doubts, I think you're going to be getting a price increase with a lot of these things. And I think they'd be a little bit disingenuous if they didn't include a little bit of a price increase, because if they just stuck with the same prices, it's not what you see on that secondary market anyway. When you finally go and buy the product, it's not at that MSRP. It's just going to make people mad. Okay, so Ryzen, they will come out with some sort of like 3D cache processor. We don't know what processors, but they'll probably start at the top end, like a 5900X, maybe a 5950X for those. But with the Radeon GPUs, they're going to go with, it looks like it might be just the lower end GPUs. And usually that's what happens, because the first year they'll announce all their best GPUs to make you go and buy those really top-end GPUs like the 6900 XT or the 6800 XT. And then later on in that final year, they will start selling you the lower-end GPUs, because those ones are like, okay, if you didn't buy the top-end ones, okay, we'll start selling you the lower-end ones. And so it looks like from this article, we're going to get some the Radeon RX 6500 XT and the RX 6400. Now, I think both of these will have 4 gigabytes of VRAM, which is really not enough, at least if you want to play more of the modern games. Like, for example, if you were to play Cyberpunk 2077 on this probably wouldn't have enough VRAM. And these cards are really just like if you want to play some of the older games, like say if you want to play last generation PS4 stuff at a decent decent performance, like maybe you want to play a 1080p medium, that would be fine. And these would be better than if you were to use integrated graphics, because integrated graphics still can't get you up to 1080p. So this is kind of like that next level up where, okay, I can't get one of those 6800 XTs or RTX 3080s because like they're $2,000, but I might buy this for like $300. Hopefully it's like about 300 and doesn't get scalped too much, or the reseller price is too high. So anyway, that's all I really wanted to say about AMD and PC at this stage. And I know we did a lot of PC stuff on the channel, like 6 months ago or even a year ago. I just feel like at the moment, right now, is a little bit of a quiet time for PC because we're in that middle of the upgrade cycle. And I think next year, when you're going to get RTX 40, when you're going to get the next Radeon cards, and even the next Zen 4, when Zen 4 finally comes out, I think that'll be really interesting then. So we'll cover more of that a little bit later. Excuse me, sorry. I should mute the phone, microphone. Okay, let's go to some of the chat. Hunam says, Rembo in AO Neo Next. I'm not sure what Rembo is. But yeah, we will talk about the AO Neo Next in just a second. Duke Lexus, I'm interested in the new Snapdragon G3X chip. Well, we covered that a couple of live streams ago. I think that's going to be really interesting. Probably won't see it for at least another couple of months or so. I think they're going to start with the flagships with the G1X chip first. And then later on, we'll probably see more G3X. And plus, the G3X was also designed for more gaming purposes, so it might get used in handheld devices. And they could still be a while away. So we don't really know when we're going to see this G3X chip. And also, by the way, some of that news was just a leak anyway. So it wasn't actually like they put out official information of that. So they could still be a long way from announcing a G3X. I really want to test out the G3X with mainly emulation. Also very interested to see how native Android games run. Yeah, I don't really know where it lands at the moment. Obviously the G1X they told us about, and that's going to be like 20% better than the latest Snapdragon 888. But the G3X could be somewhere like, 870 level. I don't know. Android has games, Kappa. Chip shortages will limit people upgrading. Well, yeah, the chip shortages means the prices will go up, and then more people will be less inclined to upgrade because it costs more. So people will stretch it out a little bit further. So previously, maybe you would have upgraded every 4 years. Maybe now you're looking at every 5 or 6 years to stretch it out a little bit. That's really the only way to combat these price increases, I think. Or you could get a second job. Okay, let's move on. It's time to talk about handhelds. And I've got a couple of handheld stories. One, the Analogue Pocket, and two, the AO Neo Next. So we're going to go back to back on those. Okay, so this is Analogue Pocket, and it says here it'll be available to pre-order again today. Now, what is today in internet terms? So this was Tuesday, 11:40 p.m. my time. So that's 2 days ago. So actually, you know what? We're going to go and check out the website and see what's there right now and see if it's available to pre-order. Okay. Let's bring that. Oh, okay. December 14. I think that was already, yeah, so it's December 16th now. Okay. So can we click on this? Pocket will be available to purchase on December 14th at 8 a.m. PST. We'll go back to all of the dates and everything like that. Okay. Okay, so we'll look at that. So if you were to get one, well, you would be in Group C, which is 2023. So you're going to have to wait a year for this. So for any interested YouTubers wanting to check it out, you're probably a little bit late to this already. Yeah, you really need to just snap these up if you're going to get one. So personally, I'm not getting one. I don't have enough Game Boy carts to make it worth it. I always considered getting more Game Boy carts because I don't think they're that expensive still in Australia, but I just don't know if I want to go down that rabbit hole of getting so many carts. Like I don't want to get like 20 carts and then spend like $200-300 on something that I may not seriously play given the number of other consoles that I've got. So while this is an awesome device, and I think if you have enough cards, you should definitely get one. I just don't know for somebody starting out whether it's worth it or not. So you buy this, it's $200, then you have to buy a bunch of cards, which would end up costing you like $400-500. So then you're up at like, yeah, you're up at like $500-600 already. So it's just a bit too much total expenditure for me to want to get this, but I do think it's very cool. Let's go back to the article. Excuse me. I think I'm losing my voice. Yeah, it does look really cool. I think it looks great. I think now one of the reasons why I think it's great is because I do have a Game Boy, but I kind of destroyed it because with the Game Boy I actually destroyed the screen a little bit when I was younger. See this gray area here? For some dumb reason I decided to pick and pull at it, and I peeled that off. And I do believe it still works, like the screen, but I don't know. I think I misplaced that gray thing, so I kind of destroyed my old Game Boy a little bit. But I do intend to go back and fix my Game Boy so that it looks really nice. I'm gonna go and put a new screen on it and maybe pick up a couple of cartridges here and there. But yeah, I'm not sure I will get the Analogue Pocket. If I fix the screen on this, I think I'll be okay anyway. And then I have that RG351 for Game Boy Advance games. But yeah, I do think it looks really cool. Is there anything else that I need to show from this? We've talked about it being available to purchase. You can go to the website and you can still pre-order one, but your fulfillment group will be in 2023, which is a really long way away. And you can get the black and white. I would go for the black if it was me. And rather than going to that Nintendo Life article, I think it's just best if we just read straight from Analogue. So it's $219 now. It used to be $199. There were pre-orders previously. I'm not exactly sure when, but it would have been like earlier on in the year. But they're saying that there were 3 fulfillment groups. So people who got in first, they would be able to get one in Q1 2022. And then Group B would be Q4 of 2022. That's really surprising that they have to wait 6 months for more of these. And I don't know why it takes so long. Like that seems really weird. But just seems like there's a long line for these screens, I guess. I guess they don't make that many of these screens. I think that's probably what the holdup is. We'll go and have a look at that review just in a second later to just talk a little bit about that screen. But I think that might be a reason why it takes so long for them. And they are probably getting a lot of unique parts. And also that processor inside, which is an FPGA processor, like a specialized hardware processor that they're making specifically for this Analogue Pockets, because they're trying to hardware emulate the Game Boy Advance. I don't think it's a very unique processor that nobody else is making. So they're probably having to wait in line to get theirs made. And so they made a bunch, and now they have to put in a second order, and that's why it's 6 months later. And you could see that Group C will be another 6 months later after that. So this 2023 could be something like June of 2023. Fulfillment groups will be assigned on a first-come, first-served basis. Your order status will be updated a few days after you place your order to reflect what fulfillment group you are in. The limit per customer is 2 pockets, which is pretty insane, actually. I think you'd be able to end up selling this for a lot of money if you were to put it up for sale. A lot of people would want it, and it's so supply constrained. I think, what was I going to say? I think 1.5 year wait is a really long time. However, you know, a lot of people have old Game Boys, and I don't think these old hardware is really going to last that long. As somebody who's collected consoles all their life, so my Game Boy is pretty much dead. My Game Boy Advance is dead. My DS Lite has screen problems. Both my DS Lites have screen problems. My Xbox is pretty much dead, and my Xbox 360 died, and I had to get another one. So all of these devices all end up dying. I'm sure you can get it fixed somehow if you're an electrician or you know somebody who can fix them. But this is an easy way for you to get it fixed. It's probably going to cost you $50 to $100 to get someone to look at it and fix it anyways. So, you know, or you could just get the Analogue Pocket, which will play all your cartridges anyway and do it a better job than your original hardware. So I think this is totally worth it. If you have a bunch of carts, then I would definitely get this, even if you have to wait 1.5 years. Now, the thing is, I have a Game Boy, and I have just one game. You know, yesterday I was trying to think of how many games I had on the Game Boy, and then I realized I only had one game on it. I just had Tetris, the pack-in game. And what happened was I used to go around to my friend's house and play the games that he had. So he had a bunch of games. He didn't have that many games. He might have had like about 7 or 8 games in total. But I played some of the Game Boy games that he had in his collection because I didn't have any. I just had the one game. And, you know, back then I was like 10 or so, right? And so, of course, I didn't have any money. And also, we had an NES as well. So, with the NES, like, if having 2 systems, I'd always choose to buy a game on the NES rather than the Game Boy. So, the Game Boy was kind of like my Tetris system, and that was really about it. And even to this day, I didn't really end up collecting that many cards for it because I think, like, I would have been like maybe 15, 16 where I started to peel that Game Boy screen off and kind of broke it. So I didn't end up collecting anything for it. Okay, so that's the Analogue Pocket. But yeah, I was also going to talk about the Analogue Pocket reviews. There's a whole bunch of reviews out there now, and it kind of came at a pretty good timing for people who wanted to pre-order it. At least now you know what this device is like. And so people had it for a couple of weeks and tested it. This is from Eurogamer, from Digital Foundry. This is John Linneman, and he's done a pretty comprehensive review of this device. One thing that I really was interested in was the fact that it says here, so obviously it plays Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance by default, but there's also an adapter for Sega Game Gear, which is really surprising. because that's a completely different system that the processor has to emulate as well. And they're also going to provide support for Neo Geo Pocket Color, Atari Lynx, and more promised next year. So this is a really interesting screen that can emulate all of these properly. And then the second thing to note was that they're using a really high resolution screen. And you can go and watch the Digital Foundry review. It's 50 minutes long, so it's a heck of a long review. So we're not going to go and watch it here, but you can go and watch that yourself. Now, this is a screen that is 1600 by 1440 size. And the funny thing is that the Game Boy originally was 160 by 144. So now you're getting an exact 10x resolution of the original Game Boy. So that is pretty amazing in terms of integer scaling. You're going to use up all of the pixels and it's going to look accurate. And there's not going to be any of that half pixel sort of stuff. And then also, it'll be a little bit different for the Game Boy Advance because the Game Boy Advance is different screen resolution. But I think it's still going to look very good because it has such a high resolution. They go through what it looks like basically under a microscope with what it looks like with the IPS LCD mod of a Game Boy. This is what the Analogue Pocket looks like. And this is what the original Game Boy LCD looks like. This is really interesting how, the IPS LCD mod is really different to that original Game Boy LCD. This one on the left is really different to the Game Boy. So if you were to mod your Game Boy because your Game Boy screen kind of was really hard to see, then it's kind of a different look to that Game Boy, and Analogue Pocket gets it closer to that. It's not absolutely 100% exact, but it's a pretty good option. Although I will say emulation these days also does a really good job and gets it really close to that original Game Boy LCD screen anyways. So, but having Analogue Pocket is really cool. You can put your carts in. So really great long article about the Analogue Pocket if you're really curious about it. I'm not going to get one because I don't have enough carts. So yeah, go and check that out. Go and check out the Digital Foundry review on YouTube as well. All right, let's get into some of this chat because I've left it for a little bit now. So Job Arresto says, Pocket system is too expensive for what you get. I love the look though. So I think they can charge it because they're using a lot of unique parts and unique processors. So none of this is like off the shelf stuff that a lot of the other companies, like they'll just go and pick up a processor from MediaTek or Qualcomm or that sort of thing. This is like their own processor that they're making to emulate the original Game Boy hardware and the other hardware. So it's really interesting, and that's probably why it costs so much. And honestly, to replace your Game Boy, I don't think that's too much. Like, how much would the original Game Boy cost you? Maybe like $50, $100 for a really good one. If you gave me the choice of getting the original Game Boy, and yes, I know technically the Game Boy could go up in value a lot later on down the line because it's already, 30 years old now. It could potentially go up in value just to play games on it. The Analogue Pocket, I think, and obviously I don't have a device to review it, but I think I would rather buy the Analogue Pocket. Duke Lexus, I still think it will be a few years still until we have a calm before the storm hits again with rising prices. I don't think we're going to see prices come down once, because half of it is like the perception with people to pay that price. So if people are fine with that price, then people will end up paying for it anyway. And that's also kind of what you see with the RG552, I think a little bit, is that they price it really high and people are really mad to begin with, but after a lot of discussion, after some people are okay to pay the price, I think the perception can change on what is a fair price to pay for something. I still think the RG552 is expensive, but there's, I think people are kind of upset to begin with, right, when they announce the price. But now that there are some people that are okay to pay the price, then it kind of like makes it a little bit more okay that other people are doing it. Now you kind of like, okay, well, I can kind of see where you're coming from, that sort of thing. So there's this like price perception, and so it's the same with like graphics cards. It's the same with PS5s and Xbox Series X. Like, because people have been paying $750 for a PS5, maybe there are people out there who go, okay, well, I could wait another year or 2 years to try and get it at MSRP, or I could just pay the $750 now and just get it from a reseller somewhere. So some people are going to go and pay a little bit higher, and some people are going to be okay with that, whereas maybe they definitely wouldn't have done that beforehand. Rembrandt, okay. Rembrandt, well, maybe. I don't know if they will come out with Rembrandt. That would be cool if they did, though. But I think it really depends on performance, whether I'm excited about Rembrandt or not. What I'm really looking for is at least 1080p 30, at least for Rembrandt. And if you can do that, that's great, because the previous one, forgotten the name, Cezanne maybe, 5700G, I don't think that was 1080p 30. I think that was still a bit below because it had that Vega graphics. But maybe with RDNA 2, but again, we saw it with Steam Deck, right? Steam Deck had something similar to Rembrandt with RDNA 2. And I don't think that was 1080 either, or at least not enough to play 1080p games for the latest games. Who the fuck would want a Game Boy for 200 quid in 2023? No, see, you're getting it wrong, mate. Because you need to replace your old Game Boy. That's why you're getting one. You're not getting one because Game Boy is hard to replicate in software emulation. You need a device to play all those old cards, and that old Game Boy that you have is dying. So there isn't really another choice for that at the moment. That's why you have to pay $200 for it. I don't think $200 is too bad, considering it's time we had an upgrade of that old Game Boy device anyway. It is a bit chunky, and the screen isn't very good, and I think this is a decent upgrade. And also the screen size as well. There's a bit of a look at that screen size. So the original Game Boy Color is a little bit smaller, and it's a lot more comfortable to play at a little bit bigger size on the Analogue Pocket. So there's a little bit of an upgrade there. People still want to play their carts. The accessories for the Analogue Pocket are too expensive. You're probably right. I think there's a dock or something like that. I haven't really checked, but if it was me, because I'm just a handheld gamer, that would be easy. I'd just get the handheld. Maybe a case. I specialize in console repairs of all kinds. Nice. Send your stuff to Duke repairs. It's probably just blown cap or MOSFET. The screen lens you pulled off, it super easy fix. You can do yourself only if you. Yeah, I know. I just might not have that thing still, and I have to go and buy it, and I have no idea where I could get like that replacement. I'd have no idea where I'd get this gray thing. I'd have to pull it off another Game Boy, which means I have to buy another Game Boy, and I don't really need to do that. I hope I can find that thing somewhere. I hope I haven't thrown it away. Most Game Boys that die just need an F1 fuse replacement. Well, I think, I don't remember, but I think the screen died. So I think it was that, but it's been like 5 years since I've touched it. I fix old handhelds as a hobby. Game Boy screen replacements are fairly cheap. You could also get an IPS screen replacement. DS are fairly easy repair. Screens are replaceable and cheap on eBay. Yes, so my Game Boy I'm going to fix, my Game Boy Advance. I'll also fix. I couldn't believe how bad the screen was on that Game Boy Advance. I was playing Castle of the Moon, which was already very dark anyways, and that's almost impossible to see anything. Like, you couldn't see anything. And also, yeah, I need to replace both DS Lite screens. I got 2 DS Lites. And so, yeah, that's 4 consoles that I have to repair. So I think that's going to be some pretty good content later down the track when I eventually get my hands on my old consoles, because I don't live at home at the moment. Trouble is, I get broken ones and fix them up, then keep them. I should really just sell them on. I still play a few DS games from time to time. I love my DS because I've already jailbroken it, and yeah, you can do a lot of really cool stuff. And I really like all of those old homebrew apps on it. Like, there was an app to play MP3s, there was an app to there was an app for a clock, and even back then, like, just appreciating very simple apps was really cool. Retro in, I watched Soren and North Ridge Fix. Yeah, I know that channel. Sometimes I go and have a look there, but I haven't really felt like I had anything to fix, so I haven't been there for a while. But yeah, it's a good channel. I feel like I can fix any laptop or console. I bet you do. Okay, we're going to move on to Neo Next. So we've got 2 more stories and then we're going to take a break. But we're going to do Neo Next. And Neo yesterday decided to tease their next handheld. It looks like a handheld. I don't know exactly what it is. It could be a mattress for all I know. It could be a very, very thick phone. But let me know, guys, in the comments what you think the Neo Next is. So I think it's some sort of, obviously it's going to be a handheld device. And I think they're going with that sort of like Ambinic look, where they've straightened up their edges on the left and right. So this is still a handheld. And then you've got the L1 and R1 buttons on the side here. And then I think, but they're going to make it a little bit smaller. I think they're going to make a smaller version of what they just done on the Neo, on the Neo Pro. But I'm not sure exactly what chip they're going to use. I think they're going to try and get the price down so that they have something to offer in that kind of like Steam Deck range. So Steam Deck goes from $399, $529, and $649. So maybe this Neo will start at like $650 and offer you something else. And sure, it's not going to be as performance as the Steam Deck, and there's going to be a lot of people complaining about performance for this, but this will have that sort of pocketability or portability that the Steam Deck doesn't have. So I think they're going to try and do it from that angle. So that's what I think it's going to be. So it's going to be like some sort of like 5-inch screen device, whereas the Neo is 7 inches. And I think that would be really interesting if they made it something similar to that RG552, but if it has Windows or an x86 processor inside. So let me know what you think. I mean, that's exactly what it looks like. That looks like a mattress to me. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think it will be that. What else could this be? It's out in space somewhere as well, so it could be, you know, some sort of like weird satellite dish. But yeah, Neo Next, we'll keep an eye on this just to see where it goes. You know, one thing I did want to also say is that I bought a new phone, that's the Poco F3, which cost me about $350, and then a GameSir, so all up that was $400. And then I got an RG552, which was $250, so that's $650 now. And I got an Odin, which is $250, so we're at $900. So if I didn't buy those 3 things, I could have bought a regular Neo, which probably would have been more performant than those 3 things combined. Now I wouldn't have been able to make as much content because now I have 3 devices, I can compare them against each other. but it would have been, I guess I would have been able to play more games, personally speaking, with an A and Neo than having 3 different devices. And personally, I would actually rather have just the one device rather than 3 different devices, because, you know, it's kind of like when you have so many consoles under your TV that it kind of gets all a bit crazy and you don't have enough HDMI plugs anyway. I don't want to be like, I don't want to have 20 consoles under my TV. And so it's kind of getting that way with handhelds. We'll talk about that in a second when we rank all the handhelds later on. But I think I have about 14 handhelds. So just getting more handhelds is not really my cup of tea. But for the channel, it's better for the channel if I get 3 different devices. I hope it's a cheaper version of their A and Neo. This is what I'm thinking it is, because everybody was complaining that it was $900 and then the A Neo Pro 2021 was $1,200, I think. Like if we go to the store, it's $1,300 for the retro power, $1,200 for the regular A and Neo 21. And I just think it's a bit too expensive, especially if you're just going to put that up right up against the Steam Deck. I think most people are just going to go with that Steam Deck. So honestly, they really have to bring the price of this down. And this can be some sort of like pro device that, like, once you buy the cheaper device, like for $500, $600, you go, okay, well, I really like A and Neo, then I will go and buy that pro device from them again. So they really need that entry-level device, if you will, with the A and Neo Next. I hope this is an A and Neo entry-level device that allows more people to get into their products. I think that's what they need. I think if they were to keep selling just premium devices, they might lose a bit of momentum, and they really need more people. I think it comes with a mix of things. Like, you can't always just sell premium stuff, and you can't always sell entry-level stuff, at least for business mindset anyways. You got to try and get as many people as you can, and also you got to have some, it's like business class. That's why they have business class. I recently paired up my GameSir X2 with a new Red Magic 6R. Wow, okay, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I hope that's going well for you. And let me know if you're playing Aether SX2, the PS2 emulator on that, because that's what I'm going to do with my Poco F3. And so we'll be doing a lot of Aether SX2 stuff on the Poco F3 on the channel. But that will be after the RG552. Okay, one final story before we go to a bit of a break, to give my voice a bit of a break. So this is PlayStation 4, and so it was announced, or it was announced on Twitter, that it had been jailbroken. So let's read the article. It says here, the PlayStation 4 has been hacked to allow for homebrew apps. A newly discovered hacking exploit has opened up the PlayStation 4 and Pro, and may also work on a PS5 too. A trio of console hackers have released the hack, which works on consoles with firmware update 9 and earlier, and allows for homebrew apps and unauthorized copies of games to be played. Hacker Spectre Dev shared a video on Twitter with custom firmware running on a PlayStation 4 console. So Spectre 9, awesome work by Chendo Chap and Z Null Pointer. This exploit is particularly notable as previous attempts ran on much earlier firmware updates, meaning new games which require the latest firmware won't be playable. However, Sony has only just released its latest update 9.03, meaning many more players yet to update can potentially access the hack. Another hacker involved, Z Null Pointer, tweeted that the PlayStation 5 could also potentially be hacked in the same way, but this is yet to be tested as the lead developer from the hacking team doesn't have a PS5 console. Alright, was just a joke about Cataday. The exploit is legit, and as a bonus, the kernel exploit affects PlayStation 5 as well. No, PS5 is not ready or being released. The lead developer does not currently have a PS5 console. So that's about all there is to it. But all I really wanted to do was show you a couple of tweets from where you can actually go and follow this news if you're interested following the PS4 homebrew scene and also the PS5 as well. So you should probably go and follow Spectre and Z to get the latest information on this. Now, the PS4 in the past has been jailbroken in the past, but I believe there must be something more to this now. Maybe it says here allows for homebrew apps and unauthorized copies of games, which may not have happened in the past. So that's really surprising. And I think that's why people have been tweeting about this, because this is probably the first time unauthorized copies of games can be played. But yeah, do with that information what you will. Now, another person to follow would be Lance McDonald, who takes a bit of an interest in jailbreaking stuff. And he's got some interesting tweets about this. He says, the latest PlayStation 4 jailbreak release means that any PS4 console that has not downloaded a firmware update in the last 14 days can now freely play PT, regardless of whether or not you ever owned or played it legitimately in the past. Software preservation rules. And I think that's because you can now play unauthorized apps. So if you didn't have PT in the past, now you can get PT. And before you couldn't do that. Also, he's a big fan of Dark Souls, and he's going to be doing a lot of Elden Ring stuff, and I'll be playing Elden Ring when it releases. I'm glad that it's been delayed. It gives me more time to do other things. But he says, just woke up to see a patch for Elden Ring Network test version, allowing jailbroken PlayStation 4 owners to play the demo without limits, has appeared on a bunch of public websites now, meaning what was intended to be a time-limited 4-day demo is now playable forever into the future. Okay, so if you want to play the PlayStation 4 Elden Ring Network Test Beta, you can go to, go and follow Lance McDonald. There should be some way of, well, you can go and jailbreak your PS4, then you can go and put this on, and then you'll be able to play more Elden Ring to your heart's content. You can play it for as long as you want. Okay, so that's going to be about it for this segment, and there's going to be plenty more stuff that we're going to do, and we're running an hour and 30 already, so I've got an hour and 30 minutes without a break. I'm going to take a 2-minute break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the Matrix Awakens trailer, and that's something that's super exciting. And then we're also going to rank my favorite handhelds that I have. So don't go away. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay, we're back. And I just gotta make sure the audio is okay. You know, one thing about live streaming is that there's like 5 or 6 different things that I gotta keep an eye on. The chat, the audio, and what I'm presenting, looking at the camera. It's hard. It's tricky. So, wonder. Okay. I don't know why the desktop audio is not going here. Okay, but maybe there's nothing playing. Okay, so we'll do a couple of quick, we'll do these chats quickly, and then we'll get into the Matrix Awakens. So Duke Lexus says, yes, I'm using Aether SX2 on it, and it runs amazing at 2 to 3x native resolution. That's really amazing. That's super exciting. And the Red Magic 6R, I'm guessing, has a flagship Snapdragon on that. So yeah, hopefully the 870 in the Poco F3 will do something similar. I don't know. I've watched quite a few Aether SX2 videos, the Taki Udon one. I think Tech Utopia also had some Aether SX2. He's been doing a lot of that on his channel. And so I noticed quite a big difference between the 860 and the 870. So I'm glad I went for the 870. Well, that's why I went for the 870 in the end, because I just felt like with the Odin coming, I needed a bit more of a performance gap between the two, between the 845 and the 870, at least to compare it against. Okay, Calvin Walker, I feel like PS4 hacking feels more dangerous than 3DS or Switch hacking. Yeah, anytime that it's not an easy software thing is always a little bit more dangerous. I don't know what the process is for PS4, but probably involves flashing something. I don't really know. But yeah, it could potentially brick your system. So I generally like to wait until there's a fairly safe process. But even still, like generally on the consoles, I haven't really felt like I needed to jailbreak them. Like I didn't jailbreak PS2, PS3, or PS4. And the one that I did jailbreak was the DS. So I broke that because that was really fun to have homebrew running on that system. Job Arresto, I done a PS3 hack. It's a really good retro games device. Also, PS3 games are super cheap now where I live. Yeah, you know, it's so weird. It's like, for me, PS3, I didn't really find... I liked the system a lot because it was a high-definition system. And so it was a huge jump up anyway in terms of graphics, like from PS2 to PS3. And there were just some games that were very hard to play on PS2 because it had a lower resolution. Things that needed more definition or detail on their textures, for example, that you could play easily. Okay, I'll give you an example. It's like in Yakuza, you played Mahjong and you couldn't read the tiles on the PS2. So it was very hard to play PS2 Mahjong. But on PS3, it's perfectly detailed because you could read those little Mahjong tiles. So PS3 was great. I just didn't find that many interesting games on the PS3. Like it had all my staples that I expected from it. But I don't know if there were any... I guess, breakthrough games on the PS3 aside from Uncharted, really. But let me know what games you like on the PS3. Duke Less's Red Magic 6R has a Snapdragon 888 phone cost $6. Oh, really? 636. That's really cheap. Maybe I should have got that instead. Although that would be a little bit more expensive than what I just got, I think. So if I go... let me just quickly do this calc because I really want to know now. So I paid $350, right? I paid $350 for the F3, so it's 490 Australian dollars, and the Red Magic 6R is 636. So it's another 140 Australian dollars more. So I think I'm okay with the 870. I was already paying too much anyways. But that is awesome that you got an 888 for $636. That's a really good bargain. Okay, we're gonna start with the Matrix Awakens. Let me get into the browser. Let me make sure that the audio is working. And I'm not going to talk over this. I will pause and then comment on it, but I won't talk over it. So we're just going to watch this. This is 10 minutes, so it's not really that long. If you haven't seen this yet, it's totally awesome. You probably should want to watch this natively, right, on your YouTube app, rather than watching it through a stream like this. All right, let's play it and see how we go with the audio. I might have to stop it and then fix the audio if it's not playing right.
I'm Thomas Anderson. Like many of you, I work with computers. I like the freedom I feel outside the limitations of the real world. But computers are also mirrors, reflecting back who and what we are and the choices we make, the worlds we build.
I find it really hard to believe that this is computer generated. This is so close. We're really at the point where, I know we say this a lot, we're really at the point where this is photorealistic. Now, I remember the first time I thought I saw photorealistic graphics, and that would be the PS2 when you're running Gran Turismo 3 on replay, and they had added extra graphical effects and reflections and all of that sort of thing. And because the car, they model it so precisely, it really felt like it was photorealistic. So it's been about 20 years that we've talked about having photorealistic graphics. But I think genuinely this time you can probably say, okay, they're so close that I would say even in 20 years' time, we look back at this and say, okay, this is probably the first time where we got photorealism. I don't know. Let me know, guys, what you think. When was the first time you got photorealism in your game? What was it? For me, it was like Gran Turismo 3 on PlayStation 2. Okay, let's keep going.
They also confront us with questions about why we want to choose this over that. Why we want to make X instead of Y. Where do ideas of who we are and what we want even come from? You take the red.
And so I'm also questioning, because I haven't actually read up on this. I haven't watched Digital Foundry's review on all of this. I'm really wondering if it's not actually Keanu Reeves. Like, I just cannot tell. I cannot tell if that is actually Keanu Reeves or if it's computer generated. I have to believe it is not, and the reason is because they're going to show Trinity next, and I believe Trinity was definitely computer animated, and so, but they got Neo real close. They got Neo and Keanu Reeves real close.
Who we are and what we want even come from.
You take the red pill, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real?
For instance, I'm not even sure why I'm here. I remember waking up and thinking that I'm supposed to come here. That it was important for me to ask people, how do we know what is real? Hi, I'm Keanu Reeves. Over 20 years ago, I first played the character Thomas Anderson in the Matrix trilogy. Those films pioneered digital cinema with shots like bullet time. Back then, we talked a lot about where the digital age might take cinema and narrative. In an industry where actors have tried to remain perpetually young, we wondered about digital faces that could become
Does this not look like Dante from Devil May Cry?
immortal.
Hi, I'm Carrie Ann Moss, and I played Trinity in the Matrix films. 20 years ago, we asked ourselves...
See, so here is where I can tell that this does slightly look a little bit off. Like, this almost looks as if there's not enough detail. And then all of her animations are a little bit more robotic than Neo's, which Neo's is absolutely spot on perfect. All of his mannerisms. But here, Trinity plays a little bit more robotic. I don't know if that is actually the way she played it.
How long it would be before faces and bodies could be changed as easily as we change clothes.
I think they're doing it because they're showing you that they can just move all of these people with the same routine.
We wondered, what would identity mean in a completely digital world?
And what would reality mean when a world we can build feels as real as our own?
What just happened?
Yeah, this is what they wanted.
Look at this shot. This is so crazy. It looks so real. It's ridiculous. It looks like it could have just come straight from the movie itself. And I think a large part of this has to do with the color or the color template of the scene. Because you look at this and this art style or color palette is kind of it goes well with like getting that realistic look, and this is a very similar color palette to what other more photorealistic games use. So things like Drive Club, for example. If you guys remember Drive Club, this was a PS4 game that at times, because of the lighting or the way the lighting looked in this game and how they got so close to matching photorealism, that they were able to, I guess, kind of trick you into believing that it looks photorealistic.
Oh, what just happened?
Yeah, this is what they wanted. They said they were fine with your theoretical mumbo-jumbo, but they needed some sexy action.
Who said?
The marketing people.
Marketing? I thought we were supposed to have total creative control.
Welcome to the Matrix.
You still got it.
Like riding a bike, they say.
I sometimes miss this version of us.
Me too.
The hell are you doing back there?
Sorry, I was told this is a sim preparing me to fight the system.
Right on. You know about this?
Yeah. It's all supposed to be a little unreal.
Word of advice. Agents are bad. But whatever you do, stay the hell away from marketing. See you soon.
So, what now?
Haven't you ever watched a movie before? Shoot the tires.
Say no more.
Keep them off us.
You drive. I'll shoot. Dodge this.
done.
Thought you'd never ask. You boys are gonna get a kick out of this. Come and get it! Too many of them! You again!
It always is funny how the helicopter can't shoot the car, but you're able to shoot the car. That's just the way it goes.
Hold steady! Hell yeah! What are you doing?
Time to blow this box down.
So I think most people would actually go and watch the movie of this. Like if they were shown the trailer at the cinema for this, they would end up going to watch the movie and they wouldn't even know it was just running on the PS5 at the back. But yeah, that was totally amazing. The gameplay, obviously, nothing incredibly innovating. It's just a tech demo, which is fine. But later on, they're going to show you some really cool stuff where they walk around the city and the power of the Unreal Engine 5 as well. But yeah, just going through some of this stuff, like because of that color palette, it makes everything look like it's realistic. And so this is going to be like, this is basically going to destroy every single other car chase sequence that we've ever gotten in video games, because nothing is going to look as good as this. So we're gonna continue on. There's about 3 minutes left. That is just a ridiculous number of objects that they have to keep in I guess keep track of. That's just crazy. The number of things that they have, and imagine the cost to the CPU as well. Just keeping all of those cars and things like that operating. And then there's so many other cars and things that I'm not even sure. I mean, sure, if you actually have this shot and you'll have that top-down view for like a couple of seconds, there's no gameplay involved, so I guess it's kind of worth it. But even still, like, I think generally in-game, because you're not actually in this view all the time, you're not actually keeping track of all of those things. But maybe they found a way where you can do it at very little cost. They just showed rule-based object placement, which is really interesting, actually. Because imagine like if you're a designer and you have to put all of these cars down yourself manually and decide what you want to do. Now you can just write a rule and say, hey, I want every street to have maybe 5 cars during 5 a.m. And then at 11 a.m. you want 10 cars, and you want it randomized so that you want different colors of cars and different types of cars. So this is really interesting that they've done this. I think before they probably would have had to design many things by hand to get the right look. So they're showing nanite virtualized geometry. So this is where they're using tons and tons and tons of polygons, and it doesn't really cost them as much as it normally would. You'd have to go back to the original Unreal presentation where they talk about nanite a little bit more. So that was about a year ago. That was when they showed off the PS5, Unreal Engine 5 running on the PS5. Let's go quickly to the chat, and Duke Lexus says massive draw distance, super high amount of polygons. Exactly right. Look at this. This is insane. They're able to fit so many more because of nanite. Oh man, look at the detail on everything here. It's super impressive, and this is all mostly because of nanite and how you're able to get so many extra polygons in. I think people are just going to create channels where they're just walking around in this world and just looking around and seeing what they find, because even in just that 5 seconds there were so many super interesting elements to everything. Like this, there are different shops and things that you can go and see. Maybe you're able to go inside some of them. It would be really weird actually if you create this entire city and then you wouldn't be able to walk into any shops. Let's hope they do something about this this generation, because even for something like a Yakuza game, you had, you know, the entire city area and then you'd only have like 15-20 places you can go into, and same thing with Grand Theft Auto games. Let's hope that they open up a lot more of these buildings so that you can go into them. I know that would take a lot more work. What I'm saying is maybe they found some system, because now they're able to generate a lot of this automatically. Maybe they could do that with indoor buildings as well. Now, That would be really interesting if we had that open world area to explore, I think. I mean, I'm not a big fan of like traversal, but just having this city and because there are so many interesting things, right? Like if you were to play Assassin's Creed, there's not that many interesting things, and then every time you're walking to something in the distance, it can be a little bit boring. But this would be really interesting because there'd be lots of different things that you'd be able to see around every corner. That was one of the things that I learned from a town planning class, is that if you keep everything really nice and compact, if you have lots of retail on the ground floor, then people are a lot more likely to walk through your streets rather than having big blocks where you don't have as much stuff to look at. So one thing I did want to just quickly show was, I mean, I guess you guys know what Drive Club looks like, but for those that don't remember, Drive Club got really close. And this is a game that is on PS4. Would you have to wait for these? I might get this afterwards. I think I need that. Okay, so this is Drive Club. This is on PS4. And look, you know, because it's got that sort of same similar color palette that has the gray skies, that sort of real, and they absolutely nailed the lighting in this. And so you can see that if you nail the lighting, you can get very close to a photorealistic experience. And definitely Drive Club looks way more photorealistic with the gray skies and the clouds and the rain and all that sort of thing, versus when it doesn't have gray skies. So given that it's got gray skies, given the Matrix has got gray skies, then that's why you kind of see that it looks so good. It's like that one step level ahead of it just having some other different art style and different color palettes. And also, if you're still further interested in like how they actually did this, there's a really good Lumen video that they showed, and they're talking about global illumination. So I've talked a little bit about global illumination before, but essentially this is what they're using in Unreal Engine 5 to create what they've done in The Matrix Awakens. And so you can see, like, once you get the lighting correct, you can really make some very photorealistic things. I think The Matrix Awakens has gone one step beyond what they've just shown just there. So a big part of global illumination is, just for those who haven't heard of that term before. Now, obviously, I'm not an expert, but here they show off what global illumination is. It's essentially the light bouncing off your objects and interacting with other objects. So you could, if you had direct illumination, that would be one light source pointing at this orange thing and lighting this up. But indirect illumination would give you this orange glow off the side of this post. That's caused by light bouncing off this orange object, this barrier, and then that light is going to get reflected onto this post. And then they're going to do that with all of the objects in the scene. And normally what they do with that is they use ray tracing to do that. But it can be really expensive to do every single object with ray tracing, because that just costs a lot of rays, and it's going to, well, it's expensive in terms of processing power, because it's got to bounce around everywhere and work out like what your level of, what your end result is going to be. So Lumen helps to, Lumen helps with this. Now, as you can see here, the blue object gives a bit of blue light, but Lumen will help with this. They also have a software solution as well, so they don't just also rely on hardware solution to do their ray tracing. So I think there's a lot of things that they're doing in the background that we don't really know exactly how, but they're able to bring that ray tracing and global illumination processing cost down. So that is The Matrix Awakens. I hope you enjoyed taking that bit of a look at the video, it was really awesome. And by the way, like if you actually look through this video, this was posted on August 11th, right? So about 3 or 4 months before the Matrix Awakens video. And you can also almost see that there are some scenes in here where they were doing it for the city, here we go. So here you can see they're already doing the city for the Matrix Awakens. And they posted this on August 11th. But of course, nobody knew about that before, that they were going to do the Matrix Awakens. Okay, so that's the Matrix Awakens. And we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the last topic of the day. What are we at? We're at 2 hours and 6 minutes. Let's try and make this half an hour. It's been a big show already. Jiraiya D'Souza. Yo, what up, Jim? Hey, how you going, Jiraiya? How's things? Let me know in the comments below. What are you up to? What are you playing at the moment? And I will get to your comment. Okay, so about 2 weeks ago, I did a ranking of my favorite racing games that I played. And they were really games that I played a lot of. So it wasn't just like I played a couple of hours here and there. They were games that I played at least 10 hours. And most of them I probably played like 20, 30 hours. And I did the ranking for that. Go and check that video out. It's not actually on the thumbnail like it is for this one. I meant to put on the thumbnail, but I just thought people might not have been interested as much. So I left it out of the thumbnail. But if you go back to, it would be this one here where it says ranking racing games. So this is the previous Halo Infinite live stream. So I ranked all of the racing games there. And now today, I thought we would rank all the handhelds that I have. So as you can see along the bottom here, these are all the handhelds that I've got. I've got another photo of this somewhere. Oh, wait. No, that's my... Here we go. Okay, so here we go. So these are the ones I currently have on me at the moment. So you can see I've got a Switch. I've got a Switch Lite. This is the purple one up here is the RG351P, which I really love. This is the PowerKitty X18S that I just recently reviewed. This is the PowerKitty V90. This is a new 3DS. I have another 3DS. I have a 3DS XL, but it's not a new 3DS XL. So that kind of puts me in a weird position, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. This is another RG351P. This is the RG351M, the metal version. And over here, I've got the red and blue Vitas. And both of those are not jailbroken, sorry, they're not jailbroken. I might end up jailbreaking them once Sony stops with all the updates, because then that would just get annoying if I accidentally update and I have to redo that jailbroken process. But I only plan to jailbreak one. I want to keep one as it is, just because like I kind of like that original experience anyway. Okay, so let's go with this ranking thing. Let me put this photo away. And guys, let me know below in the comments what is your favorite handheld and why you like it so much. And okay, so we're going to go, I think, in chronological order. I think that's the best way to do this, because that way we kind of get to relive what it was like to have this back then. Okay, so obviously the first one I got was the Game Boy, and this is a pretty easy one for me. And also, maybe I should talk about the rules for this as well, because I'm basing this on everything that I know of. So it's like the hardware of it, the game library, the games that I had, and so the games that I played, so for example, the Game Boy, I didn't have very many games. I only had one game, but I played games on my friend's Game Boy. All of this is going to be reflected in where I'm going to rank it. And I don't think you should take this too seriously either. It doesn't mean that one console or one handheld is better than another just because I put it a little bit higher. But yeah, this is kind of like my memories of these handhelds and what I think, what ranking I think they deserve to have. How's the OLED on your Vita? Well, actually, I don't have that one anymore. I traded one of the OLEDs in for and then purchased a LCD Vita. I'll explain why in just a second. My brothers had burn-in. Okay. So, because I think one of the reasons of those early OLEDs, this is like really early, and so those OLEDs, I just felt like, I know some people who had issues with it, so I wanted something with a bit more mature technology like the LCD. You know, by the time the Vita 2000 was released, when it was like 2014, LCDs had been around for ages anyways. It was a very accurate, very good display. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. A lot of people just said that the OLED was just far superior. And I don't think that's completely true. Like when you go and play the Vita 2000, the color accuracy is really good. I think what people look at is though the vibrancy of it. So if they play something like Virtual Tennis where the red tennis court is very vibrant, they immediately go and say, hey, the Vita 1000 is better. But the Vita 2000 is also very accurate in terms of this color display. And also in terms of form factor, ergonomics, everything else like that, I tend to favor the 2000 more. That is what, after I picked up my first 2000, I realized I prefer the 2000. So I sold the other 1000 and got another 2000 for my backup. Okay, but we're not talking about the Vita yet. We'll wait until that point in time. I've got things to say about the Vita anyway. So these are my handhelds, and as you'll know, like, in terms of a lot of the retro devices that we're starting to talk about now, I think those have only been around for a couple of years anyways. So, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of other very cheap knockoff handhelds. But for most of my gaming time, I was just collecting the I don't know what you say, the regular or like the Sony Nintendo handhelds. So I've just been getting those. So that's what this kind of reflects. Okay, so here we go with the Game Boy, and I'm going to put this in tier A. And let me take a drink while you all think about that. Now, let me tell you about my experience with the Game Boy first. So I would have been about 10, and the Nintendo Game Boy, my friend had one. Actually, a lot of people had one. People were bringing it to school and that. So I was like, oh, this is really cool. And it doesn't look like it's that expensive. I think it was like 150 Australian dollars a time, which is expensive, but it wasn't like $299, $399 of the SNES, right? So I asked my mum to get one. My dad actually got one from overseas. Now, the cool thing about the Game Boy is that you can play cards from anywhere. So it's region free. So that was awesome. That was a great decision from Nintendo. And it's funny how they've rolled back on that since then, with the 3DS being region locked, which is super annoying. But it was region free back in the time, so you could pick up cards from anywhere. So even though I bought mine from overseas, or my dad bought it from overseas, I could play Australian cards. And that was really cool. But even still, the problem was that I had an NES and a Game Boy at the same time, and every time that I wanted a game, it would always go to the NES. I mean, you know, as a kid, we had, even if we only had one TV and my mum hogged the TV anyway, that wouldn't make me go play the Game Boy. I would just wait until my mum finished, and then I would go and play the NES, right? So anytime that I would kind of choose the NES anyways, both in terms of game time and also because of of money, because like if we could only get a couple of games a year, so I would always get an NES game like for my birthday or for like tests and things like that. We did well, then we would get a game, but it would only be like 2 a year. So it wasn't very many games. So for those 2, I always ended up getting NES games. And I never actually ended up getting any Game Boy games, which is another reason why I'm not getting the Analogue Pockets. And so I don't have any cards for the Game Boy, and that's why I'm not getting the Analogue Pocket. If I had a lot of cards, I would definitely be picking up an Analogue Pocket to replace this old thing. But I think later on I will go and repair this. I think the screen is broken, but yeah, my memories of it is that I went to my friend's house to play all of his games. Now, he didn't have very many games. He had maybe like 6 or 7 games, and he also had an NES as well. But we would play his Game Boy games because I didn't have any. So I remember playing his Game Boy games, really enjoying my experience with it. And this was a time where Nintendo really broke the mold of what handhelds could be. Because back then you had single handhelds with single games on them. So things like the old Game & Watch, you would pay something like $30, maybe even $40 Australian dollars. So times it by 0.75 to get to US dollars. But you would pay $30 or so to get some sort of like Game & Watch thing, and it would only have one game. And the graphics would be really basic, way more basic than what is on the Game Boy. And even though at the time people were talking about color devices already, because you could play any game that you wanted because of the cartridges, and there was nothing else really out there like it, the Game Boy automatically became the de facto handheld for most people. And most people had a Game Boy. Not very many people had the Game Gear. The other thing was the Game Boy had super long battery life, so that was really good for kids. Like, it had something like 10 hours to 12 hours of battery life on it. Whereas if you played the Game Gear, you needed 6 AA batteries, and it would give you 2 hours or so. So really bad battery life there. So every time, so I think people did buy rechargeables at the time, but they were also really expensive. So it like cost you another $100 to get rechargeables. But if you're on the Game Gear, you'd run down those batteries real quick. Duke, Lexus, take it easy, Jim. We'll catch up soon on Discord. Peace out, and may the handheld be with you. Thank you so much for joining the chat and the live stream today. Super fun having you on. Okay, so that's the Game Boy. I didn't have any games for it. It's still in tier A, in my opinion. Still an amazing handheld. Honestly, if I had more time right now, I would play more Game Boy games. I just think they're really cute, and there's something interesting about the early game design there. Okay, so the next handheld I got was the Game Boy Advance. And this is also a system, and this was the color I got too, this clear sort of, I think it was like a clear purpley type color. And that wasn't my favorite color. I wanted the purple one, but obviously they got the message wrong and got me the clear purple, which is fine. I didn't really care. Played Game Boy Advance games just fine. Now, the reason I put this here in B is actually because I think it's more like a B plus. It's a B plus type of tier, and there's no B plus here. And I didn't want to just create one single B plus level here, because when I did this last night, I didn't come up with any C plus categories. So you just have to pretend that this Game Boy Advance is in the B plus. Now, why it falls down a little bit is because while it's awesome, the biggest bonus is that it plays Game Boy games as well. That's so amazing. But I think the screen does lack it down a little bit. And I had so many problems with the Game Boy Advance screen earlier on. We've got massive wind and rain here. It's the monsoon season here, guys. It was so dangerous to actually drive here on the freeway. very dangerous. So I don't really want to do that too much. But anyway, if you can hear the rain, it's because there's massive rain outside. I apologize for that. There's really nothing I can do about that. Okay, so the Game Boy Advance, amazing game library. This really took it to another level. Like, we were getting Super Nintendo games on this thing. Like, you got Super Mario World, which was, I think, Super Mario Advance 2, I believe. And you got Super Mario Brothers 3 port on it as well. But you got very close to SNES games on it, which was totally amazing. So my only criticisms really was that the screen was really bad, and they took many goes at trying to fix it. They put a backlight into it, which didn't really work that well. And I think they finally fixed it in the end with their last iteration of the GBA. But even still, it kind of pales in comparison to what you can do nowadays with the mod. And also, the other thing was that it just has 2 face buttons, which I'm not sure. I know why they do this. I know why they do like different buttons on handheld devices versus their home consoles. I think it's because they want different experiences, or the fact that they want you to get to buy both the home console and the handheld. So they put different buttons on it. Same with the Vita, right? Like the Vita, it's criminal that they didn't put like the R1, R2 and L1, L2 buttons, and they only had 2 shoulder buttons. So yeah, I love the Game Boy Advance, but again, I didn't really have that many friends. I really didn't have that many games on it, because even at that time, I probably would have been like about 13, 14, 15, something like that, and still didn't have enough money to buy games regularly on the Game Boy Advance. So I had about 4 or 5 games. I had Castlevania Circle of the Moon, which cost me a hell of a lot of money back then, but I had to have it because, you know, this was like a Igavania, like Metroidvania style game on a Game Boy Advance. That sounded so crazy cool to me. I had Mario Kart, the Super Mario Kart on it. I had Street Fighter Alpha 3, and I had a couple other games, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So I have 5. Oh, Metroid Fusion as well, which is a great game. So I had a few games on it, but I just didn't have enough to really make me put this game in A. And the other thing was, I didn't have any friends that had a Game Boy Advance. I think people kind of grew out of the handheld thing by then, because we were in like middle high school, and so people were playing PCs or people were playing PlayStation. So people didn't play the Game Boy Advance as much. Like, you'd bring it to school and it'd be like, nobody's playing that anymore. It's not like in primary school you bring the Game Boy, it's really cool. If you brought Game Boy Advance in Year 9, people were like, people have got like other things now. So yeah, I didn't play enough games on the Game Boy Advance. That's why I put it in the B+ class. But if I had lots of games, yeah, probably it could have gone into A. Okay, so what is next? I believe the PSP is next. And I'm going to put this, and I'm sorry about the photo, but that's just how it turned out. I'm going to put this in B. So, you know, when the PSP came out, this was unbelievable. This was like the perfect handheld. This had a beautiful screen. It had almost photorealistic graphics at the time for a handheld. Like you could run a movie on it and watch a video on it, whereas you couldn't on the Game Boy Advance, right? So that was amazing. Jared D'Souza, I love GBA SP. Yep. Yeah, so that was a little bit later, and I didn't get that one because, you know, back then you don't buy 2 or 3 handhelds. So I had this old Game Boy Advance landscape version. But yeah, I think the GBA SP had the the backlight, if I'm not mistaken. So that would have been a big plus. And also, of course, the clamshell is really nice too. But anyway, the PSP, I had it jailbroken, but honestly, I didn't really have that many games to jailbreak. And in the end, I was just buying a lot of my games anyways because they were really cheap. Like by the end of the PSP Live, games were like $10 at my local store. So, and it wasn't like every game was $10. You'd have to wait for a special or a sale when they were clearing them out. But sometimes you'd be able to get some cheap games, and I ended up picking up quite a lot of PSP games on it. So actually, when you watch my videos on the new retro handhelds, I'm actually going back and playing a lot of those old games, like Persona 3, for example, or Ridge Racers, that sort of thing. Wipeout, I'm playing that. So I'm kind of like playing all of my old PSP games when I'm testing it out. So I kind of know what they're about, but at the same time, I wanted to emulate my old games. But the reason it gets a B and not an A is because I do feel like there was some... it is a little bit old. Like even at the time, there were things like a UMD drive, and I wish they would have gone with a cartridge instead of a UMD drive, like a spinning disc. It just felt like it was a really weird solution to have this big, weird spinning disc. I suppose back then they wanted more data, which was why they wanted to go with a UMD. Like with that UMD, they probably could have got like 1 gigabyte of information on it, whereas for a cartridge, that would have cost way more if they wanted to pay for a cartridge with 1 gigabyte. So I get that's why they had to have it. But now, you know, with the Vita, you actually got all of those games on little carts, which just made it way more, it made it much better. The other thing was that it didn't have dual analog stick, which was really a big miss, I think. Not only that, but like it didn't have dual like R1, R2, L1, L2 buttons, which was a problem. They really could have gone with the stack shoulder buttons like the Switch has gone. I think they could have figured it out. I think they just didn't want to put stack shoulder buttons because they wanted to keep it separate to the consoles. They wanted the handhelds to have less shoulder buttons, and also because they thought it wouldn't look as nice in the marketing shots, which is weird, I know, but like they were pretty particular. Sony is a pretty particular company when it comes to like what their devices look like. So the biggest gripe I think for a lot of people would be that it only had 1 analog stick, and you really need 2 analog sticks if you're going to play first-person shooters. If you've ever played something like Siphon Filter or Medal of Honor, you're using the face buttons to look around. So those face buttons, you have to press those face buttons to just look around. It's a really clunky solution. And if you go back and play it now, those games are not fun to play. Exactly, Jiraiya. A lot of Sony marketing was against cartridges because of Nintendo at the time. Yeah, exactly. They were trying to differentiate themselves because they wanted to show that you could put a lot more information. And Sony is really good at something like that. Like, for example, if you look at the marketing with PS5 and Xbox Series X, they were like, hey, we're going to show everybody this next-gen stuff. Even though you can't play it now, you're going to really enjoy this video. And, you know, they were showing a lot of the SSD stuff and Ratchet and Clank and all that sort of stuff. But Microsoft showed Halo Infinite, and people were deriding them for showing Halo Infinite, even though that was actual gameplay at the time. So Sony is really good at thinking about what people want in their marketing. The PS1 having CD drive was a big thing for Sony. Yeah, so the PS1 with the CD drive, that's totally fine from my perspective, like for a home console. I just found it a little bit clunky and bulky. Like, I mean, the perfect solution is what the Vita and the Switch has with those little carts. That's what I like. So it was a little bit big, but of course, you know, it was back then, so that was the solution for the time. So I kind of understand that. But yeah, I would put the PSP at a B+. So it's not a B, it's a B+. Okay, so I loved my PSP. So what is next? Oh, I guess a DS Lite. But I think the DS Lite came before the PSP, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure, but we'll do the DS Lite now. And I'm going to... What did I give it last night? I think I gave it a B+. So, yes, this is another B+ console. And now I gotta say, I bought more games on the PSP. And I think the PSP has a slightly better game library than the DS Lite. For my taste anyways. I know a lot of people may disagree with that. I still really like the DS Lite library. But I think slightly, ever so slightly, I think the games on PSP I tend to like more. I mean, there are things like Outrun 2006, Wipeout. They're more my type of games that I'd play. Ridge Racer. They all play better on a DS Lite. Sorry, they all play better on a PSP. Whereas something like on a DS Lite, I tend to generally play more of the casual games, more of the, well, I won't say kiddie games, but like easier casual games with a more basic user interface. Those type of games. So things like I used to play crosswords on DS Lite a lot. It was just something so easy to pick up and just play crosswords. So that's like, yeah, it's the crosswords game. And there were things like Puzzle Quest. I like to play that on... Also, I played Puzzle Quest on both those devices. But games like Puzzle Quest, I would like to play that on DS Lite. So the DS Lite was my casual machine. And there are also a lot of other innovative games on the DS Lite as well. Say like Cooking Mama. People don't realize, people might laugh at it and go, hey, Cooking Mama is kind of lame. But this was using a stylus pen to create games that had never been created before. And so it was super cool to like play Cooking Mama. I think the kids would still really get a kick out of this, playing something like Cooking Mama on the DS Lite with a pen. I don't think it's the same playing it with your finger on your on a phone or an iPad. They do that now anyways, but I think it's kind of cool to play it with a stylus because it's a lot more precise. There was Trauma Center as well, another one that I wanted to mention that was really stretching like the types of gameplay that you could get on a touch device. So I really respect the fact, I really respect the DS Lite from that perspective. And I think the clamshell, this is my favorite clamshell by far. It just has the perfect design everywhere, from the looks of the thing, from the ergonomics, from how it feels to hold it, from the screens, how they're both symmetrical. Yeah, I think that's absolutely perfect. So I have two of these, and now the reason I have two is because my first one, this white one, actually died, or the screen died. So I've got a big black line in the middle that goes right through the screen. And so then I decided to pick up a second DS Lite while I was in Japan. So I was just there, and I was walking past a book off, and I'm like, oh, you know, I gotta get like a second DS Lite. So I just walked in and bought one, and it was just $20, and I was hoping it'd be decent. When I got back to the hotel, let me take a drink. When I got back to the hotel, I found that one screen was a little bit more yellow than the other one. And I'm like, damn it. So I was a bit disappointed. I'm going to have to fix both of these DS Lites. I'm going to have to fix both of these DS Lites at some point. Fix this Game Boy, fix this Game Boy Advance. So yeah, that's a lot to do, but I do like these consoles very much. So this is an A, the Game Boy is an A. Game Boy Advance is a B+, B+, B+. And so what are we on to now? I think the next device I got would have been the Vita. Now, I only have this crappy photo of the Vita. I wasn't able to change it. And so now the Vita, I'm going to do both of these at the same time because we may as well talk about both of them at the same time. Now, I like the Vita 2000 more than the Vita 1000 because it has better ergonomics. The screen is a little bit more mature. The battery is a little bit bigger, and so it's not as old as the battery I got in, I think the Vita 1000 was like 2012 sometime. So all in all, you know, when I bought my Vita 2000 in like 2016, 2017, I'd already used my battery in the Vita 1000 for like 4 years anyway. So I decided, okay, I'm going to get a Vita 2000, and then that's going to give me a new battery that's going to last a little bit longer into the future. That's why I made the upgrade. When I got this, I was so happy with the ergonomics of it, and the screen was perfectly fine for what I needed for, that I decided to just sell off the old Vita 1000 because I was a little bit worried about the screen technology because OLEDs was very new in 2012. So I figured there's probably some panels out there that are probably going to have some defects and things. I didn't want to take the chance on that and trying to fix up a Vita, given how all of my other screens had died. So I got a red Vita. So so as you can see there, I got this red Vita here. So I got the blue one first, and then about, I guess, half a year to a year later, I decided, okay, I will just get a second one as a backup, but I will sell my Vita 1000. Now the Vita 1000 was still perfectly fun and fine. It is a little bit bulkier, which is okay. It's not that much bulkier, but I do like the ergonomics of Vita 2000. I guess just trying to be a little bit picky here, but yeah, Vita 2000 is still kind of what it's definitely top 3. It used to be my favorite, but it's not my favorite anymore. And I think that's mostly because I don't play it as much now. Because the Switch is my main console now, so it's so close to the Vita that I don't pick up the Vita as much anymore. But I do intend to go back and play some games on it sometime because I have some stuff stuck on there. For example, all the Atlia games that I have there. I have 4 or 5 Atlia games, and I really need to play those. And I don't have them on other systems. But I have about 45 physicals. I think I have 45 physicals for the Vita. I got a ton of games for it, and I probably played about 20 of them, so I probably played about half. Probably finished about 10 of them. So there's still a lot there for me to finish. I probably have about 30 to 40 digital games as well on there as well. I invested quite a lot in there, so I definitely need to go back and play it sometime. Overall, like I got like 80 games for the thing, so definitely one of my favorite systems. Let's go to some of the chat. So Jiraiya says, I love GBASP. Also a lot of, okay, I read that already. My brother had the DS Lite while I had a PSP. We both got them around the same time for doing well at the end of term test. That's awesome to hear. And I think you would have been super excited to have both in your house. And because they're both amazing systems. And the DS Lite, I didn't mention, but it's such a huge improvement on the regular DS. Like guys, if you remember the first DS, Nintendo, was an absolute monstrosity. And that's what the original DS looked like. And as you can see, it didn't even really fit neatly. I mean, if you look at this everything looks like it fits perfectly. The lines are really beautiful, but the DS was kind of like a pretty horrible looking. I I think they tried maybe a little to get that gamer edge to it, like with a lot of gamer hardware that they tend to do. But there's just so many wrong design decisions for this thing. Like this is kind of dug in a little bit on both sides, whereas this thing is flat here. I don't know, just something about the DS that doesn't look like it's very ergonomic. And I think a lot of people looked at this and just didn't like it because of the ergonomics. And I was kind of one of those people. But once the new Nintendo DS came out, I was like, this is it. This is like a beautiful handheld console. And it remains perhaps the most beautiful clamshell device that I have. Okay, where are we? We're going to go back to this. Okay, we're going to pick it up a little bit because we've got quite a lot of consoles left. So we're at Vita. Okay, so we're at 3DS. And so I'm going to put the 3DS here. And I think a lot of people are going to be upset at this. Jiraiya D'Souza, I played Trauma Center on my cousin's Wii. Yep, I played Trauma Center on the Wii too. It's pretty good. It does feel a little bit weird, and it is harder to play on the Wii because you got to wave your wand around versus the stylus. I do prefer it on the DS, but yeah, I think it's still fun to play on the Wii. So, okay, anyway, back to the tier list. So I'm going to put the 3DS as a C. I don't believe it's up there with the Game Boy Advance, the PSP, or the DS Lite. These are all B pluses. I don't think the 3DS is a B even in my book. Now, I know a lot of people really like the 3DS. A lot of Nintendo fans really like it. A lot of great games came out for it. I don't think it's so much the game library per se. I think the game library is okay. I do think it's a little bit weak. I think part of the reason is because the Vita graphics are so high, much higher resolution that it just made the 3DS a little bit harder to play. It was harder for me to go and pick up the 3DS because the Vita was much better from a hardware perspective. So that's a personal thing, I think. Not everyone will agree with that. There'll be other people who enjoy the gameplay on 3DS and enjoy playing Nintendo games more, and that's fine. Maybe you have it higher up on your tier list. But as you can see, I've got the Vita up here and the 3DS down there. I just played the Vita more. That's all it was. I have 80 games on the Vita, and on the 3DS, I have about 10 games. And so I had this rule actually where I want to buy a system where I can think of 10 games I want to get for it. And if I have 10 games, then I will go and purchase a system. And there were, but like after I purchased it, I no longer felt like I could really justify paying, say like $50, $60 to buy a 3DS game, because I'd rather spend that money on something else. So at the time, I would have rather purchased the PS4 game, for example, or a game on PC. So the problem was that games were really expensive on the 3DS, and Nintendo started to have this policy of not reducing the cost of their games, and it just became like I felt like it wasn't really worth it to buy 3DS games. Now these games were like 240p, and so they were really struggling, and that's another reason why I didn't really like the 3DS so much, because the screen resolution was just so, I guess, 2010s or even 2005s really. I mean, this was an era before, like, you know, your HD consoles like PS3, 360. This is the type of console you'd play like if it was the same era as the PS2. And so I think they did a mistake. Obviously they went for it because they needed that processing power to do 3D, and they thought 3D was really cool. And so they had to carry that on for like 5-6 years of the console life. And by the end of that life, like 2016, 2017, it just became really long in the tooth to have that resolution. And the 3DS XL also made it worse because it was even more blockier. That's the other thing as well. And we may as well put the 3DS XL here as well. The 3DS XL, it was just extremely blocky even for its time. And then the thing was, going back to the new 3DS didn't actually make that any better, really. Even though there was a smaller screen, now everything was kind of small and it didn't feel comfortable to actually play the game. So I couldn't win either way, right? The whole thing was just disappointing. Now you might ask, like, why do I have two consoles? And that's a really good question. Sometimes I ask myself, why is Blue like $500 to spend on two consoles? And for the longest time, I tried to sell this Yoshi console, but I didn't get anyone interested. So this Yoshi console is actually a US edition console, and it's back in Australia now, and it's really hard to sell a US edition console because people are expecting, because it's not region free either, you have to buy US region games. So I did a dumb thing back then where I thought, oh, maybe I will get the US version because then I will be able to get games earlier, or maybe some games will be cheaper, and that way I'll have a bit more of an advantage because they have a lot more physical games in the US, so games can sometimes go for cheap. I bought this, and then it was really hard to get games for it, and then you'd have to pay $5-10 shipping, which killed any savings anyways. So I ended up only having about 3 games for this Yoshi 3DS XL, and this is the US version. So I had Dragon Quest 8, Fire Emblem, and something else I can't remember. But yeah, I really only had 3 games for it, and then I stopped collecting for that. A Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. And so I decided, okay, well, I'm not going to buy US games anymore. I'm going to buy the new 3DS, and because it was like on sale anyway. I think this was like $100 Australian. So I got one of these. And I decided, okay, I'll just get Australian games and sell the US one. But I was never able to sell the US one. So I ended up only getting about 10 games for this. I couldn't justify paying like $50, $60 like 5 years later for something like Super Mario 3D Land, for example. They didn't discount that game for about 5 years until finally it made it into the player's choice. And then it was like half price. But by then it was just way too late. Like, I've lost interest in it already. So yeah, so that's where we're at. 3DS XL, I think that was a pretty big disappointment, and it was a bit of a miss in my book. All right, so the next handheld, where are we at? Okay, so this is it. This is the big comeback from Nintendo. This is my favorite handheld of all time, and possibly my favorite console of all time, though we're not quite there yet, but I really do think I will end up getting the most number of titles for this handheld console. So I think this is almost just about the perfect console. I can't think of anything that I would want to change. I guess you could be really picky and say that on the left Joy-Con it doesn't have a D-pad, but I do have a Switch Lite, so if I ever want to use a D-pad, I got that. It does feel a little bit more flexible because of those Joy-Cons, so that's a little bit of a build quality thing, but really those are really minor complaints. I simply love my Switch. I've been using it as my main console for almost 2 years now, and I haven't really... this is something I haven't said on the show yet, but in our bedroom we have a TV, but I lost my couch. We threw the couch away because apparently it was getting old and they wanted to get a new one, but they never ended up getting a new one. So I've been without a couch for about 2 years, and therefore I haven't been able to play PS4. I don't have a couch, I can't play PS4. So therefore I've been playing my Switch most of the time. And the Switch is great. You can play that anywhere. You can play that on the bed, on the chair, on the floor, on the table. And so that's been really great. And this year I finally decided, okay, I'm going to get a second Switch Lite, get Animal Crossing so that the kids can play together, get Mario Kart so they can have their own screen. And that's going to be a really great experience. And it really was. I really enjoyed it. And the other thing is that there are so many games. The game library is huge. It's probably got the best game library of any handheld that I've ever seen. It's got all of those old Wii U games that people who didn't get a Wii U, and I did get a Wii U, so they can go and get those games. I haven't actually gotten any of my old Wii U games because I already got them on Wii U. And so it's got all of those amazing games, but also got a lot of Switch games as well, Nintendo exclusive Switch games, and it's got a lot of third-party games as well, and then a lot of ports that we've never had on handheld before. Things like Baldur's Gate, for example, or Baldur's Gate 2, Icewind Dale, those type of games we've never had on a handheld before. So it's really exciting to see. And then also there are other like PC games have also started to come onto consoles as well. I think they first really started to come on the PS4, and then they started to also put them onto the Switch as well. So things like City Skylines, Football Manager we've already had on consoles for a while now. The hospital game, 2 Point Hospital, I think that's what it's called. So a lot of PC games on there as well. Lots of indie games as well. It's got an eShop that's nice and easy to use, and it's finally on. The games go to your account, which means hopefully these will all get carried over to the next console, the next Nintendo console, though nothing is certain, right, with Nintendo. But overall, really love the Switch. And one final thing that I want to say about the Switch is that with any other home console, if you want to play multiplayer with your family, you're going to have to get a second, third, fourth controller, which is super annoying. And finally, the Switch comes back with 2 little mini Joy-Cons, which are perfect, especially for children. You don't really need anything bigger than that. They're not uncomfortable to use. Unless you're a big adult with big hands, then maybe you'd want to get some other type of controller for yourself. But for kids, this is great. And it comes with 2 out of the box, which we haven't really had since like the NES and SNES days, which is something that I really love about those old consoles. They always came with 2 controllers, and they were meant to be played with your family and friends. And so the Switch brings that back a lot. And if you want to play 4-player, you just have to get 1 more set of Joy-Cons, and usually that comes in some sort of bundle. I bought mine with Mario Party Superstars, and so I was able to get that and the game for something like $70-$80. And so it was very easy to get 4 Joy-Cons. So it's just a great multiplayer system. Now, just quickly, I'm going to put the Switch Lite at A. And the reason I put it at A is because initially I thought I would like the Switch Lite a little bit more because I'm only predominantly a handheld gamer, at least in terms of if I was to play this on handheld or console, I would play the Switch on handheld mostly. I don't really play on TV that much. So I thought I would like this more. But actually I slightly prefer the bigger screen. And of course, you can't take away the fact that the Switch Lite has lost a lot of functionality. A lot. Your tablet mode is gone. TV mode is gone. It's really just single player. So if this is your first Switch, I would almost recommend everybody to just buy the Switch, the regular Switch with 2 Joy-Cons. I would really only go for this if you're trying to stretch, if your budget is super tight and you can't stretch that extra $100 to get this. I think this is totally worth it in every step of the way. You get the TV out and you get the dual Joy-Cons. But this is probably like that second device that you would get for multiplayer. I think that works well because if you have 2 kids, it's not like you could spend it on a second regular Switch with 2 more Joy-Cons, but you wouldn't have to. Like that second Switch can just be this type of device with the Switch Lite, and that would be fine as well for multiplayer. So yeah, that's the Switch Lite. I think it's good. It's just not S tier. No vibration too. It's huge for some games. I didn't even realize the Switch Lite didn't have vibration. That's a really good point. I've had it for so long. I don't know. I'll have to go back and check. All right, so let's go with the RG351P. And so I'm going to put this in A tier. I just think this is the Ambinic RG351P. This plays a lot of retro games all the way up to PS1. It kind of struggles with PSP, Dreamcast games. It can play some of them, but really we're talking about like the bottom 25% of the library there. So really, if you're buying this, it's mostly on PS1 games and below, and it does it great. Like you could play a ton of games on this. You can play arcade games on this. You could play Neo Geo games on this, and of course, 16-bit, 8-bit games and all that. Plays that just fine. But this is really fun. As soon as you put on your own custom firmware, it makes it even better. I love the custom firmware, Arc OS on this system, and I think everyone should be getting one of these. It's $85 to $90 to get this, and it's going to emulate pretty much, I don't know, like 15, 20 years of games. And I think that's completely worth it for $85. So Ambinic RG351P, that goes in the A tier slots. There's almost nothing that I think is bad about this. There's a couple of very minor things. Like for example, it doesn't have Wi-Fi, so you have to use a dongle. And that's really all I can think of on the top of my head. I guess maybe it's a smaller screen, so it's 3.5 inches. So it's a little bit bigger than say like your Game Boy Advance, but overall it still feels like it's a good size for that era of games. Like once you get to PS1, it does feel a little bit small, but I think it's okay. But for things like SNES, NES, it somehow feels like that 3.5 inch screen is fine for those type of games. Okay, so the V90 I'm going to put in B. The reason it goes in B is because it's just so cheap, and you can play quite a lot of SNES games. It doesn't play everything, but you can play quite a lot of SNES games. You can play pretty much all of your Genesis games and below. So that's why it goes there, but it cost me $30. And I think officially the price is like $40 or $45, but you can probably find it for $35 to $40. This is a great console. It looks really terrible, but if you can get past its looks, I think there's a lot of good there. The screen is good, the D-pad is good, the buttons are good. It's really just the case that is just kind of ugly, I guess. And it doesn't really have that big of a battery either. You could upgrade the battery, but I think it's fine to like just have a battery there. You could get like 3 hours of gameplay pretty easily in this. And for a device like this, that is perfectly fine, I think. I didn't place the RG351M. I'm not going to talk too much about this. All I'll say is it's heavier, and I don't think people need to stretch out the $50 to buy this. If you want to save some money, you can just go with the P version. It won't have the Wi-Fi, but if you get the combo that comes with on Ambinic's website, it will come with a Wi-Fi dongle. I think that's good enough. It's not the best, but it's fine. Okay, so this is the device that I reviewed just recently, and this is the PowerKitty X18S. This is the last device. We're here. So guys, we're about to finish up, so get all of your comments and questions and things like that in, and I'll go through them after this. So this is the PowerKitty X18S, and now I quite like the device. I really like the device. There are obviously some flaws with it in terms of build quality. I think it's really important because like handhelds are the type of thing that you gotta appreciate. Well, at least for me, like I really just enjoy holding that RG351P. I don't feel like I quite get that joy with the PowerKitty X18S. It just feels like I'm playing a device that just feels very cheap. Now, if it was a V90, it's a little bit different because it cost me $30 and I don't mind as much. But the PowerKitty X18S costs $160, and I just don't know how that's going to fare when we get the other devices coming in, say like a Retro Pocket 3 or an RG552, how that's going to fare in terms of build quality, if I'm going to enjoy this. We're going to have to see. Maybe this is going to move up when we get those other devices in. Maybe I'll feel like this deserves better. But for now, it goes into the C category. Like, I still think it's good. Like, I think the 3DS is good. I think the I think the Palkitty X18S is good. It's just not quite up there with. It's not up there with the DS Lite, and it's not up there with a PSP. It's just not. So I wouldn't say C is a terrible grade. I think it means it's a fair grade. Like, this is a fair device. It plays games amazing, but it lacks somewhat in some other areas. So that's kind of why I put that there. And we'll have to see how much I play this when the other devices come out. So that's it. That's my ranking, and it doesn't look like I have very many, but that was 14 handhelds. So that feels like a lot of handheld talk to me. But let's go straight to the chat, because there have been quite a few comments there just now. So Calvin Walker says, all of Aminic's 351 devices are stellar in my opinion. Yeah, I really think so. I like the 351V. I would have got the 351V if I didn't have three 351Ps. And you know what? I kind of starting to like that 280V as well. It looks so pocketable. But again, I'm not going to get it because I just already have too many devices like that already. And as you can see, like, I have 14 devices. How does one play 14 devices? It's very hard to. Calvin Walker, like, you almost can't go wrong with any of them for their value. Yeah, the value is pretty good on all of those, and especially like if you can catch them when they have their 20% off. Like, I saw the 280V for like about, I think it was $70, which seemed pretty good to me. And then the RG351P, they were selling that at $85 when it was 20% off. Jiraiya D'Souza, the RP2 Plus kind of destroys the 351P value proposition. Well, I mean, it came out a lot later, Jiraiya. So the 351P was out like maybe 8 months to a year ago. So I bought mine about 3 or 4 months ago. And so the Retro Pocket 2 Plus obviously wasn't out then. So this was, a great device at the time. And then having that, with the Retro Pocket 2 Plus, I still think there's a pretty good use case for it. If you want something more pocketable and want to play Dreamcast, that's a great device to get, because Dreamcast is 4:3. I don't think it's so good for PSP, because then your screen would be a little bit smaller, because PSP is 16:9 aspect ratio, and so you get bars at the top and bottom. I think you're better off maybe waiting for the Retro Pocket 3, even though that's a bit bigger device. But I do think the Retro Pocket 2 Plus, in terms of value, is great now. Like, what would you get if you could choose between that or RG351P? I would probably go with the Retro Pocket 2, even though I don't have it. I can't really, I can't really test that, or I really don't know what the build quality is like. But just from performance perspective, I think that would be better to get that, because then you would be able to play some Dreamcast stuff on a device of that size. But also, even if you did get an RG351P, I think that's the kind of classic device, or a masterpiece device that you're happy to keep in your collection anyways. Even 10 years down the track, you'd still be happy to play that. And they've already finished with the ArcOS development on that, so that's final. This device is as it is till the end of time, and I still really enjoy playing the RG351P. Okay, I'm so tempted to get an RP2 Plus, but I'm just waiting on those reviews. Well, I can tell you it's got that T310 processor in it, and Taki Udon has done a lot of testing on it already. He said that he gets about 50% of GameCube games run okay, or plays all right. Now what that means is that it will play and there might be some hitching or stuttering here and there, but you would be able to play through the game. So this is it's not as good as the T618, but it's fairly close. Like the T618 in the PowerKitty X18S, you're paying $160 for that. And then the T310 in the Retro Pocket 2 Plus, you're paying $100 for it. So it's $60 less. So you're getting almost as much performance as that PowerKitty X18S. So the better value is there. I mean, the PowerKitty X18S obviously has a much bigger screen. So then you have to weigh up, you know, do you want the bit bigger screen? You have to pay $60 for it and that sort of thing. Okay, so Calvin Walker, I bought a Retro Pocket 2 and loved it for 3D games. And that is, I think the Retro Pocket 2 is $65 if I'm not mistaken. It's $65. Now with the shipping, I think it's like another $12 or something like that. So you're looking at about $80, which is fine. But what a beautiful system. Now I know people have said that the right analog stick is a bit of a slider, I think, on that old Retro Pocket 2. So you'll have to decide whether that's important to you or not. Personally speaking, if you're playing anything under like PSP, it's not going to matter anyway. Like it will only matter if you are streaming some things or playing some PC games, like say if you want to play Doom, for example, then it's going to be a bit weird from that perspective. But if you're just playing old console and emulated games, like for example, like SNES doesn't have the right analog stick. Even if you were to play PS1, I don't really think there were that many games on PS1 that were that important with the right analog stick. So I think you could almost get away with it on PS1. So, okay, where are we at? But yeah, I think, but so this is $80, right? And if we go to Ambernick's website, now, I believe they don't have their sale anymore. It doesn't say they have sale. So their price is back to normal. So, but this RG351P was $85 when they had their sale recently. I'm sure it will go back on sale soon. But if this is $85 and this is $65 plus $12 shipping, then you're almost looking at very similar prices. I don't have this, so I can't really recommend it. But for me, I would go with the RG351P. I would, even though I haven't played this. So make of that what you will. But that's kind of what, based on research and things like that. Okay, so the D-pad placement is just slightly less than ideal. I suppose, I don't know, I think that looks okay to me, the D-pad placements for the Retro Pocket 2. That looks like any other type of handheld. Now the thing is, it's inverted here, so they have the joystick a little bit higher on the left-hand side, the D-pad down below. So that could be something else that you might be thinking about, because on the Ambernick, the D-pad is above. Okay, so that's something to consider as well. If you like the analog stick higher, then maybe you'd go with the Retro Pocket. Okay, so Job, thanks for another enjoyable live stream. Helped me get through my night shift. No problem. Thanks for joining in as well. Calvin Walker, I want an S tier handheld in the form of the GBA SP. The GBA SP. Okay, the other thing was there is only one handheld, and I think that it's kind of appropriate. It's the Switch because it can do many things. So people are always asking for that one handheld that can do many things or everything. Well, I think the Switch is kind of close. Now, people might not like the processing power on this because it's kind of like an old chip that it was like this old NVIDIA chip. But I think given what they've done, like if you go back and play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it still looks beautiful. If you go play Smash Brothers, it's amazing. What they've managed to, the power that they managed to squeeze out of this has been pretty amazing. Sorry, I shouldn't say power, I should say performance that they've been able to squeeze out of this, and the graphics that they've been able to squeeze out of it. Okay, so Jiraiya D'Souza, I think the form factor of the RP2, if you play 3D games, the D-pad placement is ideal. If you're predominantly retro gamer, the swap D-pad is better for ergo. Yeah, that's the thing about having one handheld that's best, because I don't think it's possible to have one handheld that is best, because even just with something like the joypad, the joystick and D-pad placement, it works better for some games and not on others. So it's impossible to have the correct D-pad, Joy-Con, or joystick placement, if you get my drift. Like, there can be it can only be suitable for one type of game. So, the KTRR1 that's going to be coming out soon, that has swappable, it's not swappable. You can choose the handheld that you like, whether you want to have the joystick on top or the D-pad on top. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see what people get. But I kind of tend to mostly agree with you, Jiraiya, that I think for more retro games, the D-pad on top is better. So then it's symmetrical with the face buttons. I think that would be better if you mostly play retro games. Jiraiya D'Souza, I agree, Calvin. I love that form factor. Juan, would like to see more clamshell devices. Yeah, me too. I know that, look, I've got all of these clamshells near the bottom there, and I do favor the landscapes. But this DS Lite, in terms of build quality and, craftsmanship anyway, or design aesthetics, I love this. I think it's almost in the A and S tier in terms of a handheld that looks great. I love the lines. I love how everything fits perfectly. Like, if you try to close a 3DS, you get a gap around the outer edges, which you don't get on the DS Lite, which I love about the DS Lite. I love that there's no gap around the edges. And so, yeah, I would really like it if people did more clamshells. There's just something about beautiful clamshells that make it a collectible. Calvin Walker, the Retro Pocket 2's right analog stick is the elephant in the room. I think the major issue is that they went with a Switch analog form factor rather than a cupped inverted 3DS style, given that it's a slider stick. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. What's the cupped inverted 3DS style? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Well, I don't think... they could have gone with that cupped inverted 3DS style. Or do you mean the Switch style? Oh, no, not the Switch style. So the cup style is kind of like that RG351P, right? They could have gone with it on the other side as well. Like, we go back. They could have gone with this cup style on the other side. I just don't know why they didn't do it. I think they just decided to be tricky and just decided to be something interesting and do a bit of a slider there. And I don't think that really worked out for them in the end, because a lot of people would just prefer two of the same. Jiraiya D'Souza, I think the KDR1 looks great. It looks pretty good. I probably won't be getting, because I've got too many devices already. Yes, it does come with the SD845. So it will be the same or very similar performance to that Odin Base and Odin Pro. Okay, so that's the end of the chat. And we had a big session today, 3 hours and 15 minutes. I knew coming in that there would be a lot to talk about. And so, but even still, 3 hours is a long time to be talking. And yeah, I'll wait just a couple more minutes if you want to get anything else in. But other than that, that's the end of the show, guys. And this will be the last live stream for maybe about 2 or 3 weeks, because I'll be working on the RG552 once that gets in. And so I'd rather just have those live stream days where I'm actually doing testing of the handheld. Otherwise, the testing process will just drag on even longer. So I'd rather just get all of that done. But it's been super fun to have another session, do another live stream. We covered a lot of stuff today. And yeah, that's going to be about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that live stream. Thank you so much for being here today. And remember, guys, there's a Discord. I believe the Discord link is in the description below. So if you haven't joined there, please come in and chat, and we can carry the conversation on there if you want, or any other time, not a live stream. I'm always on there. Now, if you haven't subscribed, I believe you guys are probably all subscribed anyway. But if you're watching this later on, and if you haven't subscribed, please click that subscribe button to help the channel out. We're at 12,600 subscribers, and we need to make this bigger because that way this will help the channel survive. If it stagnates, then I guess they will just, yeah, it will stagnate. The channel will stagnate. So please subscribe to keep more content coming. Jirai D'Souza, see you in 2022 then. Oh, yeah, exactly. So this is it, guys. This is it. This is 16th of December. So I don't know if you guys celebrate Christmas in Australia, where I'm from. I'm in Malaysia right now, but in Australia we always celebrate Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody there. I hope you all have a safe and happy time in your holidays. If you're going to go see family, make sure to travel safe. And I hope you guys get amazing presents. I hope you get what you want. And of course, Happy New Year to you guys as well. If I don't speak to you beforehand, of course, I'll be in the Discord anyway. You can catch me there. And then, yeah, actually, I would love it if you guys came in, tell me what you guys got for Christmas. That would be awesome. And of course, yeah, the next live stream, probably 2 or 3 weeks away after the RG552. It could be sometime first week or second week of January. But maybe I'll do a live stream at home if I'm just yeah, feeling like, you know, I need to chat to somebody, but who knows. But in terms of planned live streams at the moment, this is what I plan so far. So yeah, it's going to be it for the next couple of weeks. Okay, so that's going to be it for me for this one. I hope you enjoyed that live stream, and I'll speak to you guys later. See ya.